New York. As a brutal war between the Italian Mafia and the Irish Underworld draws ever closer to Harlem, both sides race to win over the one man whose decision could reshape the balance of power across all of New York. But Bumpy Johnson has never played by anyone else's rules. Will his choice plunge Harlem into an all-out bloodbath? Subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss future stories. Here, we tell the legends of Harlem's criminal underworld. Grab a cup of tea, sit back, and let's begin. 6/12. New York woke before the sun, not because it was ambitious, because it was afraid to sleep. Delivery trucks rolled through wet streets. Bakers raised metal shutters. Policemen warmed their hands around paper cups. Men with expensive coats entered buildings through side doors and left without looking back. The newspapers called it tension. The streets called it preparation. For 3 weeks, Italian crews and Irish gangs had been cutting pieces from one another. A bookmaker disappeared in Hell's Kitchen. A warehouse burned near the river. 2 Italian collectors were found inside a car, with the engine still running. Nobody claimed responsibility. Claiming is for victories. Silence is for wars that have only begun. 6/26. The fighting had no official border. That made it worse. One block belonged to the Italians in daylight and the Irish after midnight. One bar served both sides, depending on which car was parked outside. One policeman accepted money from everybody and loyalty from no one. New York had always survived by dividing itself. Neighborhoods, families, languages, corners. But division only works while everyone respects the lines. Now the lines were moving. A butcher in Chelsea stopped opening on Fridays. A truck company changed its routes twice in 1 week. A union delegate vanished before a vote. Small things. That is how large wars introduce themselves. They do not begin with explosions. They begin with adjustments. 6/41. Harlem had not joined the war. That did not mean the war had forgotten Harlem. The neighborhood sat above Midtown like a hand resting near a throat. Not squeezing, not yet. Trucks passed nearby. Money passed through. Messages crossed from east to west. Men who could not meet downtown could disappear inside Harlem for an hour and leave with a new name, a new coat, or a new future. That made the district valuable, not because it owned all of New York, because it could interrupt New York. Power is rarely the ability to control everything. Usually, it is the ability to stop one necessary thing. Harlem could stop many. 6:55. The Italians understood territory as architecture. They built slowly. A restaurant, a union office, a trucking contract, a judge who remembered favors, a policeman who forgot faces. They used violence, but violence was never the whole structure. Violence was the lock. Agreements were the door. The Irish understood territory differently. They took it like weather, fast, loud, without asking whether the roof could survive. They trusted fear because fear answered immediately. They trusted fists because fists did not negotiate. That made them dangerous. It also made them difficult to predict. A man who believes only in force eventually uses it when patience would be cheaper, and wars are often lost by men who spend too early. 7:09. Bumpy Johnson knew the difference. He had dealt with Italian bosses who smiled while measuring a grave. He had dealt with Irish crews who measured nothing. The Italians could hate a man and still sign paper with him. The Irish could respect a man and still break his jaw before lunch. Neither side was a friend. Friendship was not part of the calculation. only consequence. The Italians had influence because they understood that power needed memory, promises, debts, names, dates. The Irish preferred the present, a room, a weapon, a decision made before anyone could disagree. Force wins a street. Agreements keep a city. That morning, both sides wanted Harlem. Neither side knew what Harlem would charge. 724. At 135th Street, a milk truck stopped too long beside a closed pharmacy. The driver never unloaded anything. At 137th, a white sedan passed the same intersection 3 times. At 141st, a man in a gray hat read one newspaper for 40 minutes without turning the page. Harlem noticed. Neighborhoods always notice. They may not speak. They may not point. But they notice. A woman sweeping the entrance to her building watched the sedan. A shoeshine boy counted the passes. A barber saw the gray hat reflected in his mirror. Information does not need an office. It needs people who care what enters their street. By 7:30, 3 separate messages were already moving toward Bumpy. 7:38 Bumpy was eating breakfast in the back room of a small restaurant on Lenox Avenue. Eggs, toast, coffee without sugar. The owner kept the front door locked until 8, but the kitchen had been awake since 5. Bumpy preferred rooms before they filled. Crowds create noise. Noise hides intention. Marcus Hale sat across from him. 39, broad shoulders, quiet eyes. He had worked beside Bumpy for 11 months and had never once asked a question before deciding whether the answer mattered. That was why he was still there. A folded note arrived beneath the coffee cup. No name, no greeting, only 3 locations. Bumpy read it once, then he buttered his toast. 7:52. Marcus watched his face. Nothing changed. That was the first warning. Men who shout are usually surprised. Men who stay calm have already begun arranging the room. Same car? Marcus asked. 2 cars. The man at 140th? Different. Marcus looked toward the kitchen door. Police? Bumpy lifted his coffee. Police like uniforms, even when they are not wearing them. Then who? Bumpy drank. Men who want to be seen. That mattered. Real surveillance disappears into routine. Bad surveillance hides poorly. Deliberate surveillance hides just well enough to create a question. A question is an invitation. Someone wanted Bumpy to know he was being watched. The only uncertainty was whether the message came before the meeting or before the funeral. 8:07. At 8, Harlem opened. Metal shutters rose. Streetcars rattled. Children pulled one another toward school. A woman argued with a fruit seller over 3 cents. Life returned with its usual impatience. That was the danger of cities. They continued while men planned to change them. Bumpy left through the kitchen. Marcus followed. A black Cadillac waited beside the curb. The driver, Nathan Cole, kept both hands visible on the wheel. He had noticed the sedan too. Professionals do not announce concern. They prepare space for it. Bumpy entered the rear seat. Marcus sat beside him. Nathan checked the mirror. North or south? South first. The Cadillac moved. Behind them, the gray-hatted man finally turned the page. 8:21. They drove past the Apollo, past a church with scaffolding along one wall, past 2 buildings where broken windows had been covered with cardboard. Bumpy looked at the buildings longer than the people. People could move. Buildings remembered neglect. At 128th Street, he asked Nathan to slow down. A mother stood outside a narrow apartment entrance with 2 children beside her. Their belongings were stacked in boxes near the curb. The landlord had changed the lock. Not for unpaid rent, for a larger payment from someone else. New York called that business. The street called it eviction. Bumpy watched for 6 seconds. Then he told Nathan to stop. Time is not numbers. It is alignment. 6 seconds can decide which side of a city remembers your name. 8:35. The landlord arrived 20 minutes later. He wore a camel coat and an expression built for refusing people. Bumpy stood beside the boxes. No raised voice, no crowd around him. Only Marcus near the Cadillac and the mother holding both children close. The landlord recognized Bumpy. Recognition changes posture before it changes words. "There's a misunderstanding," the landlord said. "There usually is," Bumpy replied. The lock was changed back. The family returned upstairs. No money changed hands on the sidewalk. No threat was spoken. The landlord understood the cost without hearing the price. Fear works fastest when the listener supplies the details. As Bumpy returned to the car, he noticed the white sedan half a block away. It did not follow. It waited. 8:49, Nathan drove west. The white sedan remained behind. Marcus glanced through the rear window. "They want us to see it." "Yes. Why not approach?" "Because approaching is an answer." Marcus looked at Bumpy. "And waiting?" "Waiting makes them explain themselves." At 125th Street, the Cadillac turned south. A green Buick appeared 2 cars behind. Different vehicle, same distance. The driver wore no hat. The passenger held a cigarette, but never smoked it. Another message, another piece. Bumpy closed his eyes for a moment. Not to rest, to remove distraction. 1 watcher can be fear. 2 can be caution. 3 means organization. Someone was measuring his morning, but not hiding the ruler. 9:03. The next stop was a small office above a tailor shop. 3 local business owners waited inside. A grocer, a furniture dealer, a pharmacist. They had not come to discuss the war. That was what they said. Men often begin important conversations by naming what they are not discussing. Their deliveries had been delayed. Their drivers had been questioned downtown. An Italian-controlled trucking company had raised fees. An Irish crew had offered protection against those fees. 2 prices for 1 problem. That is how wars recruit civilians. Not with flags, with inconvenience. The grocer placed an invoice on the desk. "This keeps going, shelves will be empty by Friday." Bumpy read the amount. Then he looked out the window. The green Buick was parked below. 9:17. "Who approached you?" Bumpy asked. The grocer hesitated. Hesitation is where fear keeps its records. "A man named Tommy Vale." "Irish?" The grocer nodded. "He said they could guarantee our trucks." "For what?" "Support." "What kind?" "He didn't say." Men who refuse details are selling consequences. Bumpy turned to the furniture dealer. "And the Italians? They didn't approach us. They raised prices." "Yes, that is an approach." The pharmacist shifted in his chair. "So what do we do?" Bumpy folded the invoice. "Nothing today." The 3 men exchanged looks. Nothing sounds irresponsible to frightened people. But sometimes nothing is a wall. Movement reveals your side. Stillness forces both sides to show theirs. 9:31, Bumpy gave them 1 instruction. No private agreements. No new protection. No trucks rerouted without his approval. The grocer frowned. "What happens Friday?" "Friday happens Friday." It sounded dismissive. It was not. A city becomes manageable when fear is divided into days. Today had enough work. Tomorrow had not yet earned attention. The men left one by one. Marcus closed the door. You think the Irish offer is connected? The offer is the beginning. And the cars? The invitation. To what? Bumpy looked at the green Buick below. The passenger finally lit his cigarette. This time, he smoked. To a conversation they want me to believe was my idea. Marcus almost smiled. Manipulation is easier to see when the manipulator is proud of it. 9:46. Across town, an Irish-owned bar opened 3 hours early. No customers entered. 6 men did. One carried a map rolled beneath his arm. Another brought photographs in a brown envelope. The bartender locked the front door behind them. Inside, nobody drank. That meant the meeting mattered. Whiskey is for decisions already made. Coffee is for decisions that may become expensive. A large man named Declan Rourke stood at the rear table. He was not the oldest. He was the one the others stopped speaking around. His hair was pale at the temples. His hands were scarred. He wore a dark suit that fit too tightly across the shoulders. Some men dress for rooms. Declan dressed as if every room might become a fight. 10 o'clock, the map showed Manhattan. Colored marks covered the west side. Warehouses, garages, bars, union offices. Italian locations were circled in blue. Irish locations in red. Harlem had no color. That was why everyone kept looking at it. One man tapped the map. If Johnson closes the district to us, we lose the east route. Another pointed south. If he opens it, we can move men without crossing their blocks. Declan said nothing. He studied the empty section. Neutral territory is only neutral until somebody needs it. Then neutrality becomes a product. The Irish did not want to buy Harlem. They wanted leverage over the man who decided its price. That was cheaper and more dangerous. 10:14. He won't join a side, someone said. Declan looked up. Everyone joins. Johnson doesn't need us. Need is not the question. What is? Declan folded the map. What he fears losing. That was the Irish method. Find the pressure point. Push. If the person moved, control was established. If the person did not move, push harder. It had worked in docks, unions, and bars. It had worked on men who confused resistance with courage. But Bumpy Johnson did not confuse many things. Declan knew that, which was why he had ordered the surveillance to be obvious. He wanted Bumpy alert. A relaxed man can improvise. An alert man begins predicting. Prediction creates narrow paths. Declan intended to meet him on one. 10:28. Back in Harlem, Bumpy left the office. The green Buick was gone. No replacement appeared. That absence was louder than the surveillance. Marcus opened the Cadillac door. They pulled back. They finished counting. Counting what? Reactions. Nathan started the engine. Bumpy watched pedestrians cross against the light. One man hurried. One woman waited. A boy ran between cars. Every person believed the street belonged to them for a moment. Then the light changed. Control is temporary. The mistake is believing temporary means weak. Where now? Nathan asked. Warehouse district. Marcus turned. We weren't scheduled there. Bumpy looked at him. That is why we're going. Schedules are useful. Broken schedules are more useful. They reveal who was relying on them. 10:42. The Cadillac reached a warehouse near the river 23 minutes later. Bumpy owned no part of it. That was what records said. Records are often truthful in the least useful way. Inside, men unloaded canned goods and dry supplies. Nothing illegal, nothing hidden, but the loading schedule mattered. 3 trucks from downtown had failed to arrive. The foreman handed Bumpy a clipboard. Drivers say roads were blocked. Police? No. Italians? Maybe. Irish? Maybe. Maybe is expensive. The foreman lowered his voice. One driver said an Irish car offered to escort him next time. Protection offered after a disruption is rarely protection. Usually, it is an invoice written before the damage. Bumpy read the missing truck numbers. 2 belonged to Italian roots. 1 did not. That was interesting. 1057. The third truck belonged to an independent company from Queens. No Italian connection. No Irish connection. Yet it had been stopped. That meant the disruption was not only pressure, it was demonstration. Someone wanted Harlem to feel what access could cost. Marcus studied the clipboard. They're tightening deliveries. Temporarily. To force a meeting? To prove the meeting has value. Bumpy handed the clipboard back. Change nothing. The foreman looked uneasy. We'll run short. Not today. What about tomorrow? Tomorrow they'll want me to believe shortage is their weapon. Bumpy stepped closer. It isn't. What is? The belief that they can decide when Harlem eats. He looked toward the loading doors. That belief will cost them more than food. 11:11. Outside, the air smelled of oil and river water. Nathan stood beside the Cadillac. A paper bag rested on the hood. Inside was a loaf of bread, still warm. No note, no name. Marcus checked beneath the car, then beneath the bag. Nothing. Bumpy touched the bread through the paper. From the bakery across the avenue? Marcus asked. No. How can you tell? They wrapped theirs twice. Bumpy opened the bag. The loaf had been sliced down the middle. Inside was a brass transit token. Old. Polished. A message. The Irish once controlled routes through men, unions, and fear. The token meant passage, or refusal of passage. Threats are most effective when they look like objects people use every day. 11:25. Marcus held the token. They're offering a route. They're reminding me routes can close. Same thing, only to men who sell fear. Bumpy returned the token to the bread. Leave it. Here? Yes. The bag remained on the Cadillac's hood as they drove away. A small crowd noticed. That was intentional. Messages should sometimes be refused publicly. By noon, someone would tell the Irish the bread had been abandoned. By 1, someone would tell the Italians an Irish token had reached Bumpy. Nobody needed to carry the story. The city would do it for free. Rumor is New York's fastest employee. It never sleeps. It never asks for payment. And it always adds something before arriving. 11:40. The next message came from a school custodian. He found a man asking children which car Bumpy used. The man claimed to be a reporter. Reporters carry notebooks. This man carried clean shoes. Marcus wanted him taken immediately. Bumpy said no. Why? Because he asked children. That makes it worse. It makes him visible. Bumpy looked through the Cadillac window. The Irish want us angry. To make a mistake, to make a decision. Anger shortens distance. It makes every answer feel close. That is why impatient men create it. The custodian had followed the stranger 2 blocks. He entered a phone booth, called someone, then left in a taxi. A poor watcher, or a good actor. The difference mattered. Bumpy intended to learn which. 11:54. At noon, Bumpy entered a barber shop. He did not need a haircut. The chair near the back remained empty for him anyway. The barber, Walter Briggs, closed the front blinds halfway. Not fully. Fully closed blinds announce secrecy. Half-closed blinds create shade. Walter continued trimming another customer's hair as he spoke. 2 Irishmen came yesterday. What did they want? To know which streets stay quiet after midnight. What did you tell them? That streets don't sleep. Walter brushed hair from the customer's neck. They laughed. Men laugh when they don't understand the price. They'll come back. Yes. Walter paused. There's more. The razor stopped. Stillness is how bad news asks permission to enter. 1208. An Italian collector had also visited, not to ask questions, to leave one. He wanted to know whether Irish men had begun renting rooms in Harlem. Walter had given no answer. Bumpy nodded. Both sides were already counting doors. The war had not entered Harlem with guns. It had entered with curiosity. Curiosity is reconnaissance wearing good manners. Did he name himself? Bumpy asked. Paul Renda. Bumpy knew the name. Not important enough to negotiate. Important enough to listen. The Italians were not yet making an offer. They were verifying whether an offer was necessary. Walter lowered his voice. Which side are we taking? Bumpy watched the barber's mirror. Reflections make men look close even when they stand apart. We are not a side. Will they accept that? They don't need to accept it. 1223. Outside, a young man waited beside the Cadillac. 17. Thin coat. Nervous hands. Marcus moved between him and Bumpy. The boy raised both palms. I got a message. From who? Marcus asked. He didn't say. Then you don't have a message. The boy swallowed. He said, tell Mr. Johnson the river is getting crowded. Bumpy stopped. What else? That empty docks don't stay empty. The boy repeated the words carefully. Memorized, not understood. Bumpy gave him $5. Marcus waited until the boy left. Irish? Maybe. It sounds like them. That is why it may not be. In a war, messages are weapons. The easiest way to start a fight is to speak in someone else's voice. 1237. Nathan drove east. No one followed. That worried Marcus more than the cars. Maybe the meeting's canceled. No? How do you know? Because they've spent too much. Money, men, time, disruption. The Irish had already invested in the conversation. Men who live by force hate wasted effort. They would not walk away before collecting something. The Cadillac crossed an intersection. A delivery van entered behind them, stayed for 4 blocks, turned away. Then a taxi replaced it. Not close, not clumsy, professional, different from the morning. Marcus saw it too. That's not Irish. No? Italian? Bumpy adjusted his cuff. Now they're listening. The first side had sent an invitation. The second side had noticed the envelope. 1251. By 1 o'clock, the war had acquired an audience. An Italian taxi followed at a respectful distance. An Irish sedan waited near 116th. 2 detectives sat inside an unmarked police car, pretending to discuss lunch. Everyone watched everyone. Nobody moved first. The city had become a table. Harlem sat in the center. Bumpy understood the danger. Once both sides believed his answer could change the balance, neutrality would no longer look passive. It would look strategic. Strategic things attract pressure. Pressure attracts mistakes. Mistakes attract funerals. He needed more than refusal. He needed a position neither side could afford to challenge. But positions are built from leverage, and leverage had not yet shown its full shape. For now, Bumpy watched. The day was still explaining itself. 1306. Lunch was served in a private room above a bakery. Bumpy did not eat. Marcus did. Bodyguards eat when time allows. Bosses eat when the room allows. 3 of Bumpy's trusted neighborhood contacts arrived separately. 1 managed garages. 1 knew the train yards. 1 worked with building superintendents. None carried weapons openly. Information is lighter than guns and usually travels farther. Their reports matched. Irish men had been asking about empty apartments. Italian men had been asking about truck routes. Police had begun noting license plates near Lenox Avenue. Different questions, same intention. Everyone wanted to know how Harlem moved. A district is not streets. It is habits. Control the habits. And the streets begin to obey. 1320. The garage manager reported two unfamiliar cars stored overnight near 142nd Street. Both had false plates. Both were gone by morning. The train yard contact had seen crates moved from one freight car to another without paperwork. The superintendent knew of 4 rooms rented in cash by men with Boston accents. Not tourists, not workers, listeners, maybe shooters, maybe both. Bumpy wrote nothing down. Paper can be found. Memory must be taken. Names? Marcus asked. 1, the superintendent said. Amon Price. Bumpy did not recognize it. That made the name more useful. Famous men are easy to track. Unknown men carry the real work. Do nothing, Bumpy said. The superintendent looked surprised. Again, nothing. Again, control. A trap closes fastest when the prey believes it has not been seen. 1335. After the men left, Marcus shut the door. You're letting them stay. For today. 4 rooms. 4 rooms we know. And the ones we don't? Bumpy looked toward the window. That is why we leave the 4. Known spies are windows. Remove them too soon, and the room goes dark. Marcus understood, not happily. Understanding and comfort rarely arrive together. You think the Irish are preparing for a fight in Harlem. They're preparing for an answer. And if the answer is no, then they'll decide whether no was expensive enough. Marcus leaned against the wall. You already know your answer. Yes. Then why meet? Bumpy looked at the clock. Because they don't know I know. Information is power. Hidden information is leverage. 1349. At 1:49, Nathan reported a tire losing pressure. Slowly, not punctured by accident. A thin nail had been placed at an angle. The Cadillac had been marked hours earlier. Marcus crouched beside the wheel. They want the car slowed, not stopped. Difference? A stopped car needs help. A slow car can be guided. Bumpy looked down the avenue. The traffic was thick. Too thick for an ambush, good for observation. Nathan changed the tire behind a service station. 10 minutes, no more. During those 10 minutes, 2 calls came into the station office asking whether the Cadillac had arrived. Neither caller gave a name. The clerk lied to both. Harlem had begun choosing a side without being asked. Not Italian, not Irish, its own. 1404. They left the service station in a second car, a dark Plymouth borrowed from the owner. The Cadillac remained behind. Broken schedules, changed vehicles, new route. Now the watchers had to reveal themselves. For 6 blocks, no one appeared. At the 7th, a blue Ford moved from the curb. Irish. At the 9th, a black taxi entered behind it. Italian. The 2 watchers noticed each other. Distance changed. The Ford slowed. The taxi passed. Neither wanted confrontation. Not yet. Marcus watched through the rear glass. They're measuring each other now. Bumpy nodded. That's what we needed. Why? Because men watch differently when they know they're watched. The Irish would become impatient. The Italians would become cautious. 2 predictable reactions. 1 street. Bumpy preferred problems that announced their habits. 1418. Nathan took the Plymouth north. Bumpy asked him to turn west unexpectedly, then south, then west again. The blue Ford stayed. The taxi vanished. Marcus counted turns. They're committing. Yes. To what? A location. The Ford was not merely following, it was steering from behind. Each time Nathan approached a certain avenue, another car appeared ahead and slowed traffic. Not enough to block, enough to suggest. A guided route. The Irish wanted the Plymouth moving toward the west side, toward narrower streets, fewer pedestrians, more loading entrances. Marcus opened his jacket slightly. Bumpy noticed. Keep it closed. They're setting the road. They're showing us the road. Same thing. No. Bumpy looked ahead. A trap hides the exit. A negotiation displays it. 1433. The Plymouth passed a church, then a vacant lot, then a row of garages. The blue Ford fell back. A delivery truck entered from the right and stayed ahead. Its rear doors were unmarked. Fresh paint covered an older company name. Marcus saw men moving inside through the seam. At least 2, maybe 3. Nathan kept his speed steady. Fast movement announces fear. Slow movement invites pressure. The street narrowed near an underpass. 1 lane, brick walls, no pedestrians. Marcus placed his hand beneath his coat. Bumpy did not look at him. Not yet. They've got men in the truck. Yes. You knew? I counted weight. The rear axle sat low. Cargo does not shift like men. Observation is not suspicion. Observation is arithmetic. 1447. At the end of the underpass, the truck turned away. The blue Ford returned. A second sedan appeared behind the Plymouth. Then a third moved ahead. 3 cars. No rush. No horns. The formation tightened. Nathan checked the mirror. Mr. Johnson? Keep driving. Marcus's breathing remained controlled. That was good. Fear becomes dangerous when it needs to prove it is not fear. The front sedan slowed. The Plymouth slowed with it. The rear sedan closed distance. The side streets emptied. Not naturally. 2 delivery vans had parked across them minutes earlier. The route was now a corridor. An intersection ahead. A traffic light. A pedestrian stepping off the curb. Seeing the cars. Stepping back. The city understood before the drivers spoke. Something was about to become official. 1502. The front sedan stopped sideways across the intersection. The rear car angled behind the Plymouth. The third blocked the left. Only the right side remained open. A road home. Bumpy saw it immediately. Marcus did too. They left an exit. Yes. Nathan's hands tightened around the wheel. Reverse? No. Right turn? No. The Plymouth stopped. Engines remained running. 4 doors opened. Then 4 more. Men stepped onto the street in dark coats. No weapons visible. That meant nothing. Visible weapons are for fear. Hidden weapons are for decisions. Marcus reached beneath his jacket. Bumpy's voice stayed low. Easy, Marcus froze. They blocked us. They blocked the road. Difference? They haven't blocked the conversation. 1516. A tall Irishman approached from the front sedan, not Declan Rourke. Too young, too careful. His name was Seamus Kerrigan, though Bumpy did not know it yet. He removed his gloves as he walked, a gesture designed to look respectful. The hands beneath were scarred. Respect and violence often share skin. Seamus stopped 6 feet from the Plymouth. Not 5, not 7. He understood range. Marcus watched his shoulders. Nathan watched the mirrors. Bumpy watched the cars. The men were positioned to pressure, not fire. 2 near the rear. 1 near each side. No one stood directly in front of Nathan. They wanted the car able to leave. Confirmation. This was not an execution. Not yet. 1530. Seamus raised 1 empty hand. Mr. Johnson. Bumpy lowered the window halfway. Halfway is polite. Halfway is also cover. You've made traffic difficult, Bumpy said. Seamus smiled. Only for a minute. Minutes are expensive in New York. My employer will pay. Your employer already has. The smile weakened. Bumpy glanced at the vehicles. 3 sedans. 8 men. 2 vans blocking side streets. At least 1 truck with hidden passengers earlier. This meeting had cost planning, fuel, wages, exposure. Men who spend that much before speaking usually need something badly. Seamus looked toward Marcus. He can relax. Marcus did not move. Bumpy answered for him. He is relaxed. The quietest warning in the street. 1544, Seamus opened the rear door of the front sedan. Mr. Rourke would like 10 minutes. Here? Nearby. Then he should have come nearby. Seamus's jaw tightened. 1 second. Enough. Irish pride had entered the conversation. Pride is useful when observed early. It tells you which words cost extra. He prefers privacy, Seamus said. Bumpy looked around the empty intersection. You removed the public. Not all of it. At a second-floor window, a curtain moved. A delivery boy watched from behind a doorway. New York never gives complete privacy. It only negotiates the number of witnesses. Bumpy opened his door. Marcus stepped out first. Seamus's men shifted. Small movement. Large meaning. 1558. Stay with the car, Bumpy told Nathan. Marcus stood beside him. Seamus looked at Marcus. Only Mr. Johnson. No, Bumpy said. 1 word, no explanation. Explanations invite negotiation. Seamus considered pushing, then decided against it. Both of you. They walked toward the front sedan. Bumpy did not enter. He stopped beside it. If Rourke wants 10 minutes, he can use the street. Seamus looked toward a warehouse door across the intersection. It opened. Declan Rourke stepped outside. So did 6 more men. The warehouse had been occupied all along. The cars were theater. The room was the real weapon. Declan crossed the street slowly. Heavy shoulders, measured steps. A man who wanted every second to feel chosen. 1612. Declan stopped in front of Bumpy. The 2 men were nearly the same height. Declan was broader. Bumpy was stiller. Size matters in rooms where nobody understands authority. This street understood. Mr. Johnson, Declan said. Mr. Rourke. Declan's eyes moved to Marcus. Your man nearly made this unpleasant. My man did nothing. He thought about it. Thinking is still legal. For now. Declan smiled. It was meant as humor. No one laughed. Humor without laughter becomes a threat. Declan looked around the street. You know why we're here. I know you closed public roads. We can discuss permits later. You don't look like a man who reads permits. I read consequences. Bumpy nodded once. Then we speak the same language. 1626. Declan gestured toward the warehouse. Bumpy remained where he was. The street is fine, Bumpy said. Declan studied him. A refusal this early mattered. Entering the warehouse would place Bumpy inside Irish space. Staying outside kept the meeting in New York. Neutral ground is often just ground nobody can claim fast enough. Declan accepted, not because he liked it, because the first demand had already failed. Your neighborhood is becoming important, Declan said. It was important yesterday. More important now. To you. To everyone. Bumpy glanced at the parked sedans. Everyone did not block my road. No. Declan moved closer. We did. Force announces itself proudly. That is its weakness. It needs witnesses to feel real. 1640. Declan spoke about the war without naming it. He called it a correction, a change, a necessary adjustment. Men avoid the word war when they still believe they can control its size. He said the Italians had grown too comfortable, too rich. Too certain. He said they treated New York like inherited property. He said inherited property could be taken. Bumpy listened. No interruption. Listening is not agreement. It is inventory. Declan listed docks under pressure, trucking routes disrupted, union men changing loyalty, bars refusing Italian collectors. He described victories carefully. He omitted losses. Every salesman hides the damaged merchandise. Bumpy counted the omissions. A missing warehouse, a missing crew, a funeral nobody mentioned. The Irish were stronger than before, and weaker than they wanted him to know. 1654. "We don't need Harlem," Declan said. Bumpy looked at him. The lie arrived too early. Declan corrected it. "We don't need to own Harlem." Better. "We need access." To what? Movement. Of what? Men, goods, information. Through my streets. Through streets owned by the city. Bumpy's expression did not change. Declan had made the mistake. He spoke about legal ownership inside a criminal negotiation. Men use law when they want permission without paying respect. "The city owns asphalt," Bumpy said. "It does not own permission." Declan smiled slightly. "That is why we're speaking." "Then speak." The Irish men shifted around them, not gaining, not falling back, pressure waiting for instructions. 1708. Declan offered money first. That meant money was not the real offer. A percentage from roots, a share of certain collections, control over selected businesses after the Italians were pushed south. He spoke of future territory as if it already belonged to him. Confidence is credit borrowed from tomorrow. Sometimes tomorrow collects violently. Bumpy asked no questions. Declan increased the offer. Access to Irish-controlled docks. Protection for Harlem shipments. Lower transport costs. A voice in future union decisions. Each promise revealed a current weakness. The Irish controlled less than they claimed. They needed Harlem more than they wanted Harlem to know. Declan paused. "You could change the balance." Bumpy looked at him. "Balance for who?" "For everyone tired of Italians." That was not an answer. It was a slogan. 1722. Bumpy's silence lengthened. Declan filled it. Men who fear silence usually betray the part of the offer they meant to hide. "We're not asking you to fight our war." "Not yet," Bumpy said. Declan's eyes hardened. One word had found bone. "We're asking you to choose where it can move." "Through Harlem." "Yes." "And when Italians respond?" "They won't." Marcus almost moved. Bumpy did not. Certainty without evidence is either stupidity or deception. Declan did not look stupid. That left deception. The Italians would respond. Everyone knew it. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not publicly. But power ignored becomes power reduced. No serious organization accepts reduction quietly. Declan was offering Bumpy a front line and calling it a corridor. 1736. "The Italians are your enemies," Declan said. "They have been. They taxed your people. Yes. They restricted your businesses. Yes. They killed men you knew." Bumpy's eyes stayed on Declan. Careful. The word was soft. Soft is only wrapping for a blade. Declan paused, then continued differently. "You owe them nothing." "Correct. Then why protect them?" "I am not. You refuse us. You help them. That is how children count. One side or the other. Yes or no. Friend. Enemy. Simple categories comfort men who cannot manage consequence." Bumpy looked at the blocked intersection. "New York is not a coin." Declan's jaw moved. "No," Bumpy finished. "It has more than two sides." 1750. Declan stepped closer. Now 4 feet. Marcus noticed. So did every Irishman nearby. Distance is language. Reducing it is punctuation. "We're giving you a chance," Declan said. "A chance for what?" "To stand with the side that is going to win." Bumpy looked past him toward the warehouse. Crates stacked near the open door. Fresh tire marks. Men inside pretending not to watch. The Irish were using this location recently. Temporary base, not permanent. That meant they were moving quickly. Fast organizations often look powerful because nobody has seen where they are unstable. "Winning men don't block roads to ask for help," Bumpy said. For the first time, Declan's smile disappeared completely. Truth is expensive. Public truth costs more. 1804. The Irish men shifted again. One hand entered one coat. Marcus's hand moved too. Bumpy did not raise his voice. "Marcus," the hand stopped. That control unsettled the Irish more than a weapon. A weapon proves danger. Control proves ownership of danger. Declan looked at Marcus. "Loyal." "Disciplined," Bumpy said. "There's a difference? Loyal men die for you." Bumpy looked directly at Declan. "Disciplined men make sure they don't need to." Silence settled, not absence of sound. A command. Somewhere beyond the vans, a horn sounded. A driver shouted. Ordinary life pressing against manufactured power. Declan glanced toward the noise. One glance. Small. But Bumpy saw it. The Irish needed this meeting finished before the city became impatient. 1818. Declan changed his method. Force had not moved Bumpy, so he tried honesty. Partial honesty. The most convincing kind. "The Italians are planning to isolate you." "Are they?" "They'll close suppliers, lean on police, pressure landlords." "They already do. Then imagine worse." Bumpy did not need to imagine. He had lived through worse. Threatening experienced men with familiar pain rarely works. Declan continued. "With us, Harlem gets room. Room borrowed from you? Room protected by us. There it is." "What?" "The price." Declan frowned. Bumpy looked around the street. "You don't offer freedom." He looked back at him. "You offer new ownership." The sentence landed slowly. Men built around force often believe domination becomes generosity when spoken politely. It does not. 1832. Declan exhaled through his nose. "You think the Italians respect you?" "No." "You think they'll negotiate forever?" "No." "You think they won't eventually come for Harlem?" "They already have." "Then what are you waiting for?" Bumpy answered without pause. "For you to finish proving why I cannot trust you." The street went still again. Declan had threatened, promised, flattered, warned. He had done everything except acknowledge Harlem as equal. That was the problem. The Italians were enemies, but they understood tables, seats, terms, signatures. They understood that an agreement could survive hatred. The Irish believed an agreement lasted only until strength changed. That made every promise temporary, and temporary promises are just delays wearing suits. 1846. Declan looked toward Seamus. A signal passed. No words. One of the vans moved away from the side street, not opening the road fully, opening it enough. A demonstration of choice. "You don't have to answer now," Declan said. Bumpy almost smiled. Men say that when they need an answer immediately, but cannot afford to show it. How generous. Declan ignored the remark. "Tonight?" "No." "Tomorrow morning?" "No." Declan's voice lowered. "When?" Bumpy adjusted his cuff. "When I have an answer." "That could be too late." "For who?" Declan stared at him. There it was again. The question the Irish did not want examined. Who needed whom? The meeting had been designed to show Bumpy pressure. Instead, it had shown him urgency. 1900. Declan tried one final move. Neutrality won't protect Harlem. I didn't say Harlem was neutral. That stopped him. Marcus looked at Bumpy. So did Seamus. So did every man in the street. A sentence can open more doors than an army if nobody knows which one matters. Declan studied Bumpy's face. What does that mean? It means you arrived before my answer existed. That's not good enough. It is all you are receiving. Declan's hands remained at his sides, scarred, still, a man fighting the instinct to make the conversation physical. That instinct was exactly why Bumpy would not join him. Force was not Declan's tool. It was his religion. Religious men rarely compromise with people who refuse to kneel. 1914. Bumpy turned toward the Plymouth. Nobody blocked him. That was the answer beneath the conversation. The Irish could have forced him into the warehouse. They could have taken Marcus's weapon. They could have held him until he spoke. They did none of it, because they needed the possibility of agreement more than they needed the appearance of dominance. Declan called after him. The Italians will hear about this. Bumpy stopped. He did not turn around. They heard before you arrived. Declan's face changed, only slightly, but enough. The Irish had assumed they controlled the timing. They did not. New York had ears and walls, kitchens, garages, churches, taxis, and courtrooms. Information does not travel across the city. It lives there. Bumpy continued walking. 1928. Marcus entered the Plymouth first. Nathan started the engine. The front sedan moved aside. The rear car remained until the last moment. A final attempt at pressure. The Plymouth rolled forward. No rushing, no noise. Bumpy looked through the window at Declan. The Irish boss stood in the intersection, surrounded by men and vehicles. He had created the image of control, but images are expensive to maintain. The vans, the warehouse, the watchers, the blocked roads, all for a conversation that produced nothing. Nothing is not always absence. Sometimes nothing is a bill. The Plymouth turned the corner. The Irish disappeared from view. Marcus waited one block before speaking. That could have gone differently. It still can. 1942. Nathan drove north. Traffic thickened. The city reclaimed the streets immediately. A vegetable truck, a bus, 3 boys chasing a ball. The intersection behind them became ordinary again. Power leaves fewer marks than people think. That is why witnesses matter. Marcus checked the rear window. No tail. There is a tail. Marcus looked again. Nothing obvious. Bumpy nodded toward a parked taxi. Its mirror turned as they passed. Italian. More disciplined than the Irish watchers. Closer now. The Italians had seen enough. They know? Marcus asked. They know we met. Do they know what was said? Not yet. How long? Bumpy looked at the clock on the dashboard. Long enough to become nervous. Nervous men arrive early. Powerful nervous men arrive with offers. 1956. They returned to Harlem by a different route. Bumpy gave Nathan 3 stops. A grocery, a church office, a construction site where only the foundation existed. None appeared connected. All were. At the grocery, shelves were thinner than yesterday. At the church, 12 families had asked for emergency housing. At the construction site, work had stopped because financing disappeared. The city's problems did not pause for gang wars. That was important. Men like Declan saw Harlem as streets and routes. The Italians would see it as leverage and contracts. Bumpy saw people sleeping 3 to a room, children walking past broken brick, families paying too much for too little. Power that protects only itself eventually becomes another landlord. Bumpy did not intend to rent Harlem's future to either side. 2010. At the construction site, Marcus looked across the empty foundation. What was supposed to be here? 30 apartments. What happened? The bank changed its mind. Because of Italians? Because of money? Same thing? Sometimes. Steel rods rose from the concrete like unfinished sentences. Rainwater filled shallow trenches. A sign promised new homes coming soon. The word soon had faded first. Promises weather badly when no one protects them. Bumpy stood near the edge of the foundation. He had passed this site every week for 4 months. Each week, less changed. Men believed criminal power was measured in bodies. Bumpy knew better. A building completed could hold more loyalty than 10 funerals. Loyalty with an address is difficult to remove. 2024. A foreman approached from a trailer. He recognized Bumpy and removed his cap. Still no funds. How much to restart? The foreman named a number. Marcus looked at Bumpy. Large, not impossible. But the site was only one. There were dozens like it. A neighborhood does not need one repaired wall. It needs a system that stops producing broken ones. Bumpy asked how many families the site could house. 30, maybe 32. How many sites like this north of 125th? The foreman thought. 20. Bumpy looked again at the steel rods. An idea did not arrive fully formed. Good ideas rarely do. They begin as pressure finding direction. The Irish wanted access. The Italians would want denial of access. Harlem needed buildings. Different needs. One table. 2038, Marcus saw the calculation beginning. What are you thinking? That everyone came asking the wrong question. Which question? What Harlem can do for them. Bumpy walked back toward the Plymouth. Marcus followed. What should they ask? What it costs to keep Harlem out. Marcus stopped for half a step, then continued. Neutrality was no longer absence. It was a service, a shield, a closed corridor, a promise that neither side could use the district to strike the other. That had value, real value, enough to buy more than money for men, enough to buy brick, land, roofs, a future protected by contracts. But the price had to be high, not because Bumpy wanted profit, because low prices are not respected. A cheap border is only a temporary suggestion. 2052, back in the car, Nathan asked where next. Home? No. Bumpy gave an address near a legal office. Marcus looked at him. Lawyers? Paper? The office belonged to a young attorney named Samuel Pike. No criminal reputation, no family connection, only precision. That made him useful. Samuel had prepared housing proposals for community groups and been ignored by banks with polite smiles. Bumpy entered after closing. Samuel was still working. Cheap coffee, expensive ink, paper stacked across the desk. Paper looks weak because it lies flat. That is its disguise. Steel can stop one man. Paper can move 1,000 without leaving the room. Bumpy asked for every stalled housing plan in Harlem. Samuel stared. All of them? All. 2106. Samuel opened cabinets, folders, maps, applications, rejected loans, delayed permits, land parcels tied up in court. He spoke quickly at first, then slower when he realized Bumpy was listening to every detail. How many units could be built within a year? Bumpy asked. With financing? With pressure? Samuel considered. 50 buildings, maybe more. Bumpy looked at him. Buildings. Small apartment buildings, not houses. The distinction mattered legally. It did not matter to families needing rooms. How many families? Hundreds. Marcus watched Bumpy. The number from the construction site had become a structure. Not yet a demand, not yet a deal, but a shape. Power begins as shape before it becomes action. Bumpy asked Samuel to prepare costs by midnight. Samuel did not ask why. Smart men recognize when explanation would only slow history. 21:20. As they left, Marcus spoke quietly. 50. Bumpy said nothing. Is that the price? No. What is? Whether they believe another front costs more. Marcus understood the word they. The Italians. The Irish had approached first, but Bumpy had never expected them to pay in buildings. Force respects tribute. It does not respect investment. The Italians understood contracts, contractors, city permits, financing, and quiet influence. They could build, not because they were generous, because they had spent decades learning how legal structures could protect illegal power. Paper was part of their arsenal. That made them capable of paying a different kind of price. Enemies are useful when their strengths match your needs. Trust is not required, only alignment. 21:34 night settled over Harlem. Store lights reflected on wet pavement. Music leaked from bars. A bus sighed at the curb. Ordinary sounds, necessary sounds. Bumpy returned to the restaurant from morning. The owner had closed the front, but kept the back room warm. Nathan parked in the alley. Marcus checked both entrances. No one had to be told. The day had become narrow. Bumpy sat at the same table. Coffee replaced dinner. He reviewed nothing on paper. He replayed Declan's words instead. Access, movement, protection, victory. Every word pointed toward urgency. The Irish believed the Italians were vulnerable. Maybe they were right, but vulnerable organizations are often most dangerous when forced to prove otherwise. A wounded animal bites. A wounded empire rearranges cities. 21:48 Marcus entered from the kitchen. 2 cars outside. Irish? No. Police? No. Italian. Marcus nodded. 1 on Lennox, 1 in the alley across from Nathan. Men? 4 visible. Visible means more nearby. Marcus sat. Do we leave? No. Move upstairs? No. More men? No. The same answers. No movement. No noise. Every defensive action would tell the Italians Bumpy feared their arrival. He did not. Fear is information. Never give information for free. The restaurant owner entered carrying fresh coffee. His hand shook slightly. Bumpy noticed. Go home, Bumpy said. This is my place. Tonight it is my room. The owner hesitated, then left through the kitchen. Authority is sometimes the ability to remove innocent people before danger knows their names. 22:02. A phone rang in the front room. Once, twice, 3 times. The owner had gone. Marcus answered. No voice, only breathing. Then the line went dead. A test, someone confirming occupancy. Minutes later, a second call. This time, a man asked whether the kitchen was open. Marcus said no. The caller replied, "It will be," then disconnected. Marcus looked at Bumpy. Threat? Announcement. From who? Someone who wants us uncertain. Uncertainty is pressure without fingerprints. The Irish may have called, the Italians may have called, police may have listened. Bumpy did not choose an answer. Premature certainty is another form of fear. He checked the wall clock. 10:02. The Italians were late if they wanted to appear confident. Early if they wanted to appear calm. Timing is posture. 22:16. Samuel Pike arrived through the alley carrying 2 folders. Marcus searched him quickly. Samuel accepted it without complaint. Lawyers who work near power learn not to confuse dignity with procedure. He placed the folders on the table. Preliminary numbers. Bumpy opened the first. Land, materials, labor, permits, financing. 50 buildings would cost more than cash. They would require influence across unions, banks, suppliers, and city offices. Exactly the kind of influence the Italians claimed made them untouchable. A demand should test the thing a man is proudest of. Anyone can pay money. Only a network can build. Samuel pointed to several pages. This can be done. How fast? If nobody interferes? Nobody will. Samuel studied him. Then 12 months for the first units. Bumpy closed the folder. Prepare contracts. 2230. Marcus looked at the folders after Samuel left. You already decided. I decided what Harlem needs, not what you'll tell them. Bumpy looked at the clock. That depends on what they ask. Outside, a car door closed. Then another. No engines turned off. Interesting. Men who expect a long meeting shut down the engine. Men who may need to leave quickly keep it running. Footsteps approached the front entrance, stopped, moved away. A second group entered the alley. Marcus stood. Bumpy remained seated. The kitchen light buzzed overhead. Cheap fixture, hard white light. No shadows deep enough to hide a hand. Bumpy had chosen the room for that reason months earlier. Good rooms are prepared before they become necessary. 2244. A knock came at the rear door. 3 times. Pause. 2 times. Not a code Bumpy used. A code designed to sound like one. Marcus stood beside the door. Name, a voice answered. Leon Bellomo. Bumpy knew the name. An Italian courier. Trusted, but not important. Marcus looked back. Bumpy nodded. The door opened. Leon entered alone. Mid-40s, dark overcoat, rain on his shoulders. He carried no visible weapon. His face showed the careful neutrality of a man delivering words that belong to someone more dangerous. Mr. Johnson. Leon. Leon glanced at the folders, then at the second chair. He did not sit. My employers heard you had an eventful afternoon. Employers. Plural. The families were speaking together. That mattered. 2258. New York has many afternoons, Bumpy said. This one blocked traffic. So I noticed. Leon allowed a thin smile. They would like to avoid misunderstandings. Then they should understand quickly. Leon's eyes moved toward Marcus. Someone is coming. Who? A man authorized to speak. Name. Leon paused. The pause was deliberate, a small piece of theater before a large name. Meyer Lansky. Marcus's expression did not change. But the room did. Some names enter before the person. Lansky was not Italian. He did not need to be. He had spent years standing between men who trusted no one and making agreements survive anyway. If the Italian families were sending Lansky, they were not coming to threaten. Not only to threaten, they were coming to calculate. 2312. When? Bumpy asked. Leon checked his watch. He's already in Harlem. Of course, powerful men announce arrival only after the route is secure. Then why are you here? To ask whether he will be received. Bumpy looked at the second chair. Empty. Waiting. The Irish had blocked roads and displayed guns. The Italians sent a courier to request permission. Enemies, both dangerous. But only one side understood that manners could carry pressure farther than force. Bumpy remembered Declan's men, scarred hands, running engines, a warehouse full of hidden bodies. The Italians used different weapons, names, silence, courtesy. A chair left empty until permission was given. Influence is strongest when it can afford patience. Bumpy closed the housing folder. He will be received. 2326. Leon nodded. He turned to leave. Bumpy stopped him. Leon, the courier, looked back. Tell the men outside to move their cars. Leon's eyes narrowed slightly. They are security. They are visible. For a reason. So is my instruction. A moment passed. Then Leon nodded. No argument. The cars moved within 2 minutes. That was another answer. The Italians wanted the meeting more than they wanted the street. Marcus watched the alley clear. They listen. They negotiate. Better? Different. Bumpy placed one hand on the folder. The Irish believe strength means making everyone move. And the Italians? They know sometimes strength means moving first and charging for it later. Neither method was mercy. Neither side deserved trust. But only one could build 50 buildings before the war consumed the city. 2340. The restaurant became quiet. No cars outside, no footsteps, no phone. Silence here was not the absence of sound. It was a command. Somewhere routes were being cleared. Someone was checking rooftops. Someone was calling policemen to keep patrol cars away. Someone was telling Italian crews not to enter Harlem without permission. A meeting had not started, yet dozens of people were already working to protect it. That was organization. That was why the Italians had influence beyond their numbers. They understood that power was preparation, distributed across people who might never meet. The Irish could seize an intersection. The Italians could make the intersection irrelevant. Bumpy respected the difference. Respect is not affection. A man may respect a knife and still keep it away from his throat. 2354, Marcus poured fresh coffee. Do you think Lansky asks us to join them? Yes. And if you refuse, he will explain the consequences. And if you accept, he will explain the price later. Marcus sat across from him. So what do we do? Bumpy opened the folder again. The first page listed 50 proposed housing projects. Some real, some only possible. All expensive, all necessary. We do not join, Marcus waited. We do not refuse. That sounds like both. It is neither. Bumpy turned the folder toward him. Marcus read the heading, Harlem Housing Development Proposal. He looked up. Bumpy tapped the page once. Their war needs our neutrality. A pause. Our neutrality needs a foundation. Paper made a softer sound than steel. It would cost more. 008 headlights moved across the front windows. One car, not a convoy. The vehicle stopped outside, engine off. That meant the visitor expected time. A door opened, then closed. No second door. Meyer Lansky had arrived with men nearby, but none beside him. Another message, confidence without display. Marcus stood near the kitchen entrance. Bumpy remained at the table. The housing folder stayed closed beneath his hand. He did not know whether the Italians would accept the condition. He did not know whether the Irish would respect neutrality. He did not know how many listeners had already entered Harlem. He knew only this. Both sides had come asking what Harlem could provide. Before the night ended, one of them would learn what Harlem demanded. The front door opened, and the first chapter of the negotiation began. 012 Meyer Lansky entered without removing his coat. He looked smaller than the name that arrived before him. That was useful. Large reputations make men careless. Small men with large reputations usually earned both. Lansky closed the door himself. No bodyguard followed. No introduction was needed. He glanced at Marcus, then at the table, then at the folder beneath Bumpy's hand. Good negotiators notice what a room is protecting. Better ones notice what the room wants them to notice. Late hour, Lansky said. Early war, Bumpy replied. Lansky sat. The empty chair had been waiting for him. Waiting is sometimes the first concession. Sometimes it is the first trap. 026. No one poured whiskey. That mattered. Whiskey belongs to agreements already made. Coffee belongs to men still measuring risk. Marcus placed a cup in front of Lansky. Lansky did not touch it. "You met Declan Rourke," he said. "I met a roadblock." He calls that introduction. He should learn manners. Lansky smiled slightly. Men like Rourke believe manners are what weaker people use before losing. And men like you? We believe manners make losing look voluntary. The room stayed quiet. Two men examining one another through principles. That is what serious negotiation is. Not words. Structure. Each sentence carried a second sentence beneath it. The second sentence was usually more expensive. 040. Lansky folded his hands. The Irish are moving too fast. Fast men leave tracks. They also leave bodies. Bodies are tracks. Lansky nodded. He had not come to explain the Irish. He had come to learn whether Bumpy already understood them. That test was finished. Their position is stronger than it was 6 months ago, Lansky said. Not strong enough. You know that? They blocked 3 streets to ask for one. Lansky looked at him. The answer pleased him. Not because it was friendly, because it was accurate. Powerful men prefer enemies who count correctly. Miscounting creates accidents. Accidents create police. Police create paperwork. And paperwork remembers longer than blood. 054. The families do not want Harlem involved, Lansky said. Bumpy leaned back. Then you came to say goodnight. Lansky ignored the blade. We do not want Irish access. That is involvement. We want stability. That is a word men use when they want someone else to stand still. Lansky finally touched the coffee. Did not drink. Just warmed his fingers around the cup. Harlem becomes a corridor. The Irish can move men east without crossing our blocks. Your blocks. Our interests. Different word. Same ownership. Lansky smiled again. Ownership is only a word until someone challenges it. Bumpy looked at him. And then? Then the word becomes expensive. The first honest sentence of the meeting. 108. Lansky placed no envelope on the table. No cash. No list of favors. That told Bumpy the first offer would be abstract. Abstract offers sound large because they cannot yet be counted. We can keep Italian crews out of Harlem, Lansky said. They are already in Harlem. Not officially. Guns are not more polite because nobody signs for them. Lansky's face did not move. We can reduce pressure from your side. Yes. And the Irish? That becomes your problem. Bumpy nodded. There it was. The Italians wanted neutrality financed by Bumpy's risk. A familiar business model. Men with influence call danger shared when they mean transferred. Then you are not buying neutrality, Bumpy said. You are renting my war. 122. Lansky looked toward Marcus. Marcus stood near the wall. Still. Not decoration. Not threat. Presence. He understands business, Lansky said. He understands rooms. Same thing. No. Bumpy looked at him. Business assumes tomorrow. Rooms assume someone may not leave. Lansky's smile disappeared. Not from offense, from respect. The negotiation had reached its real level. No more ceremony. No more polite distance. Outside, a bus passed. Its brakes hissed. New York continued carrying workers through a night arranged by men who would never ride beside them. That was power's favorite disguise, ordinary life. The more ordinary the street remained, the more serious the meeting became. 136. What did Rourke offer? Lansky asked. Future promises. How much? Enough to prove he needed more. Lansky nodded. Routes? Routes. Docks? Docks. Protection? Ownership wearing a clean shirt. Lansky looked down at the cup. He will not accept refusal. I did not refuse. You did not accept. That is not the same. To Rourke, it is. Bumpy's eyes narrowed slightly. And to you? Lansky answered without pause. To me, it means the price has not been named. That was why he had been sent. Not Italian, not Irish. A man fluent in the space between threat and agreement. A bridge does not belong to either shore. That is why both sides trusted, only while crossing. 150. Bumpy moved the housing folder from beneath his hand, not across the table, beside it. Visibility without surrender. Lansky noticed. He did not ask immediately. Good negotiators let objects become curious before naming them. Instead, he said, the families can guarantee shipments. For how long? As long as the arrangement holds. Who decides whether it holds? Both sides. Then one side decides twice. Lansky's eyes hardened. Small change. Real change. Bumpy continued. You stop one truck. You call it correction. You stop 5. You call it pressure. You stop 10. You call me unreasonable. He tapped the table once. That is not an agreement. That is a clock you control. Time is not numbers. It is alignment. Never let another man own the clock. 2:04. Lansky sat back. What do you want? Direct question. Too early. Direct questions are often attempts to make the other man expose ambition before structure is settled. Bumpy did not answer. Lansky waited. Silence became a third man in the room. Marcus did not move. The kitchen light buzzed. The coffee cooled. A car passed outside and did not slow. Finally, Lansky said, Money? Bumpy remained silent. Territory? Nothing. Union access? Nothing. Police protection? Bumpy almost smiled. The list was revealing. Money, land, labor, law. The Italians knew exactly which levers moved cities. That was why their power survived men who carried more guns. They did not control one thing. They controlled the connections between things. 2:18. Lansky's eyes returned to the folder. Paper, he said. Bumpy said nothing. Something legal. Still nothing. Housing? The word entered the room differently. Closer. Lansky had read the heading upside down, or guessed from the site maps visible beneath the cover. Either way, he was now inside the real negotiation. Bumpy opened the folder. Not quickly. A demand should not look eager. He turned the first page. Maps, costs, vacant lots, abandoned foundations, rejected financing. 50 buildings, Bumpy said. Lansky's expression stayed calm. The pause before his answer did not. Buildings? For low-income families. In Harlem. Where else? Lansky looked at the maps. The war had just acquired brick. 2:32. 50 is not a number, Lansky said. It is tonight. Permits. You have people. Banks. You have people. Contractors. You have people. Unions. Bumpy looked at him. You have people everywhere. There was no admiration in the statement, only accusation. Influence creates responsibility, whether powerful men accept it or not. Lansky closed the folder halfway. You are asking the families to finance a neighborhood. I am asking them to pay for peace. They will call it tribute. Then they can call war cheaper. Lansky's hand remained on the folder. He did not push it away. That mattered. A rejected demand leaves the table quickly. A dangerous demand stays because someone is already calculating how to survive it. 2:46. You are not neutral, Lansky said. No one is. You are asking us to build your strength. I am asking you to build homes. Same thing. That answer pleased Bumpy more than denial would have. Lansky understood. Housing was not charity, it was structure. Families with stable rooms became voters, workers, customers, witnesses, people who remembered who protected them when banks did not. A building could hold loyalty longer than a gun could hold a corner. The Italians knew this. That was why they hesitated. They were not being asked to donate. They were being asked to finance a future they would not own. Power hates investments it cannot control. But war makes expensive things appear reasonable. She 3 o'clock. What do we receive? Lansky asked. Harlem stays closed. To Irish traffic? To war. That is vague. It is exact. Bumpy leaned forward. No Irish weapons stored here. No Irish crews using apartments. No Irish messages routed through bars. No Italian retaliation inside the district. No kidnappings. No collections for either side. No bodies left as warnings. Lansky listened. Each rule removed a method. Each method had value. You will enforce this? He asked. Yes. Against them? Against anyone. Lansky studied him. Neutrality sounds soft to men who have never enforced it. Real neutrality requires more violence than alliance. An ally has one enemy. A neutral territory must be ready for all of them. 3:14. And the Irish listeners already inside Harlem? Lansky asked. Bumpy looked at him. The wording was careful. Not whether they existed. How many? The Italians knew. Maybe not names. Maybe locations. But they knew enough. What about them? Bumpy asked. They leave. If they choose to. And if they don't? Bumpy closed the folder. Then they stop listening. Lansky's eyes held his. No explicit threat. No number. No promise. But the room understood. There were already people in Harlem who believed themselves invisible. Nothing makes a spy more vulnerable than success. Success turns caution into routine. Routine creates doors, windows, schedules, names. The Irish had entered quietly. Leaving would require permission. They did not know that yet. 3:28 Lansky finally drank the coffee. Cold now. He made no complaint. Men who complain about cold coffee usually have nothing serious to lose. The families will ask why 50. Because 49 sounds negotiable. Lansky almost laughed. Almost. That is not the real answer. No. What is? Bumpy opened another page. A list of overcrowded buildings. Evictions. Condemned apartments. Families waiting for rooms. The numbers were not dramatic. That made them worse. Drama ends. Conditions remain. Because 50 begins to change the map. Lansky read the page. Not all of it. Enough. He understood maps. A neighborhood rebuilt becomes harder to pressure, harder to empty, harder to buy, harder to frighten. Bumpy was not asking for shelter. He was asking for permanence. 3:42. You think this war gives you leverage, Lansky said. It does. You think we cannot afford another front. You cannot. Lansky's face tightened, only slightly. We can afford anything. No. Bumpy's answer came fast. You can pay for anything. That is different. Money purchases action. Capacity survives consequence. The Italians had money. Men, judges, police, contracts. But wars do not ask what you own. They ask how many things you can protect at once. The Irish were already stretching them west. A fight in Harlem would stretch them north. Police attention would widen. Supply lines would narrow. Enemies would begin testing every edge. No empire fears one strong enemy. It fears simultaneous demands. Bumpy had named the fear without raising his voice. 3:56. Lansky looked toward the window. The blinds were half closed. Streetlight cut the room into narrow bands. "You are taking a risk." "I woke up in New York." "That is not what I mean." "I know. If the families reject this, you will have insulted them. If they reject it, they will still understand the price." "And Rourke?" "He already understands less than he thinks." Lansky rested both hands on the table. "Declan is not patient. Then he should avoid long wars. He may force your answer." "He tried. He can try harder." Bumpy looked at him. "So can I. No anger, no display, just balance. Threats become believable when the speaker does not need them to be admired." 4:10. A knock came from the kitchen door. Marcus moved first. One knock. Pause. One knock again. Their code. Nathan entered. His face remained controlled, but not calm. "There's a car across the alley." "Italian?" Marcus asked. Nathan shook his head. "Irish." Lansky did not move. Bumpy looked at him. "You were followed." "No." Lansky answered too quickly for pride. "Not fear. Calculation." "They followed Leon." "Same result," Nathan continued. "Two men, maybe more." "Armed?" "Yes. Everyone was armed. The useful question was whether they wanted the weapons noticed. These men did. The Irish had found the meeting, or wanted everyone to believe they had. Either way, the night had become narrower. 4:24, Marcus reached for the light switch. "Leave it," Bumpy said. "Darkness helps frightened men imagine courage." The light stayed on. Lansky remained seated. "You have another exit?" he asked. "Yes." "Use it." "No." Lansky looked at him. "They may be here for me. They are outside my room. Ownership changes responsibility." Bumpy stood, not quickly. The folder remained on the table. Marcus checked the front. Nathan returned to the alley. No one spoke for 20 seconds. Then an engine started outside. Did not move. A second engine answered from the street. Italian security had returned. No order from inside. They had noticed the Irish car. Two sides now waited beyond the walls. The restaurant became a border with coffee cups. 4:38 Lansky spoke quietly. "This is why neutrality fails." Bumpy looked toward the kitchen. "No, this is why men pay for it. A neutral room only matters when both sides want to enter and neither dares first." Outside, car doors opened. 1, 2, 3. Marcus drew his weapon, but kept it low. Bumpy looked at him. "Hands down. They're moving. Let them move." Movement reveals intention. Stillness preserves options. A knock came at the rear door. Not their code. 3 hard blows. Irish rhythm. No politeness. No patience. Declan's method had reached midnight. Lansky watched Bumpy. This was no longer only a negotiation. It was a test, whether Harlem's rules existed before anyone agreed to them. 4:52. A voice came through the door. "Mr. Johnson?" Seamus Kerrigan. Bumpy recognized the tone. More controlled than the afternoon. Less respectful. "We need a word." "You used yours." "This is different." "Then say it differently." A pause. "We know who is inside." Lansky looked at Bumpy. No surprise, only confirmation. The Irish had ears close enough to identify the visitor. Maybe one of the 13, maybe more. Information had moved too quickly. That meant the network was deeper than the names already known. Bumpy felt no anger. Anger wastes clues. Speed is a clue. Precision is a clue. Someone inside Harlem had reported not only the meeting, but the guest. That narrowed the field. Not enough, but closer. 5:06. Seamus spoke again. "Rourke wants an answer before sunrise." Bumpy moved toward the kitchen door. Marcus stayed beside him. Lansky remained at the table. He understood visibility now. If the Irish saw him leaving, they would know the meeting had occurred. If they did not see him, they would assume it anyway. Secrecy had expired. Only posture remained. Bumpy stopped behind the closed door. "Tell Rourke he does not set clocks in Harlem. He says the clock already started. That is his clock." A pause. Then Seamus lowered his voice. "You sit with Italians tonight. You choose them." Bumpy looked at Lansky. Lansky looked back. The Irish wanted a simple world. One chair, one side, one enemy. Simple worlds are easy to rule, until reality enters. 5:20. "I sit with whoever enters respectfully," Bumpy said. "Then let us in." "No." The answer landed hard. Not because it was loud, because it separated invitation from pressure. Seamus struck the door once with his palm. Marcus raised his gun. Bumpy lowered it with one glance. Control first. Always. "You are making a mistake," Seamus said. "No." Bumpy's voice remained calm. "I am watching yours." Silence followed. Outside, the Italian men shifted near the street. Shoes on wet pavement. Metal beneath coats. One nervous movement could turn the alley into a front page. Blood makes noise. Noise brings police. Police bring names. Names bring trials. A war can survive anger. It struggles to survive records. Bumpy would not let the first body fall here. 5:34. Lansky stood, slowly. He buttoned his coat. "I can leave through the front." "No. They are waiting at the rear. That is why you do not use the front." Lansky understood. A visible exit would turn the restaurant into a declaration. Italian envoy received. Irish demand rejected. The city would decide the alliance before Bumpy did. That could not happen. Not yet. "What do you suggest?" Lansky asked. "You wait." "For what?" "For them to become impatient. Rourke's men are always impatient." "Exactly. Impatience is useful. It makes plans reveal their seams." Outside, Seamus gave an order too quietly to hear. One Irish car moved. Not away. Around. Toward the front. Bumpy had expected it. A man who believes in force always checks the second door. 5:48. Nathan entered from the alley again. "They're splitting." "How many front?" "2. Rear?" "3 visible." "Roof?" Nathan shook his head. "Unknown." Bumpy looked at Marcus. "Take Nathan upstairs." Marcus hesitated. "You stay?" "Yes." "With Lansky?" "Yes." Marcus did not argue. Discipline, not loyalty. He and Nathan moved toward the stairwell. Lansky watched them go. "You trust them." "I trust what they do under pressure." "Same thing." "No." Bumpy returned to the table. "Trust is personal." He touched the housing folder. "Pressure is measurable." The room had become smaller. 2 men, 1 folder, 2 gangs outside. A demand still unanswered. That was the true shape of the night. Everything else was scenery. 6:02. Seamus knocked again, this time softly. Softness after force is never kindness. It is adjustment. "Mr. Johnson?" Bumpy did not answer. "We can leave." Still nothing. "But Rourke will assume you chose." Bumpy looked at Lansky. Lansky's expression said nothing. His presence said enough. Seamus continued. "You have until noon." Bumpy finally spoke. "No." The word crossed the door. Seamus paused. "No what?" "No clock." The Irishman remained silent for 5 seconds. Then footsteps moved away. One engine started, then another. The rear alley cleared. The front remained occupied. A partial withdrawal. Not surrender, not peace. The Irish had pulled back one hand while leaving the other on the table. That was more dangerous than leaving both visible. 6:16. Marcus returned downstairs. Roof clear, Nathan followed. The front car is still there. Bumpy nodded. Let it stay. Lansky looked at the clock. Your morning is becoming crowded. It started that way. He picked up the housing folder. Lansky did not reach for it. Not yet. The families will not agree tonight, he said. I did not ask for tonight. You asked for 50 buildings. I asked whether they prefer brick or war. Lansky looked toward the front window. The Irish car waited outside. A visible question. He turned back. What guarantee do we have that Rourke stays out? None. That is not enough. Guarantees are for men who control the future. Bumpy slid the folder toward him. This controls the price of violating it. At 6:30, Lansky opened the folder again. He read more carefully now. Not the maps, the mechanisms, construction companies, union requirements, permit schedules, financing structures. Names had been omitted. Smart. A plan without names can still be negotiated. A plan with names can be stolen. You prepared this before I arrived, Lansky said. Before you decided you needed it. You expected us. I expected someone who understood cost. Lansky looked up. And if the Irish had agreed to build? They would not. You are certain? They know how to seize. Bumpy tapped the page. They do not know how to maintain. The old thought returned, not as philosophy, as evidence. Force can empty a building. Agreements keep it standing. 6:44, Lansky closed the folder. I will take this. No. The answer came immediately. Lansky's hand remained on the cover. You expect me to remember 50 projects? I expect you to remember the number. They will want details. They can come for them. Who? Someone authorized. Lansky almost smiled. The same language Leon had used. Returned. Negotiations remember phrasing. That is how respect announces itself, without apology. You do not trust me with paper. I trust you to understand why. Lansky removed his hand. He did understand. Paper is colder than steel. Steel threatens the body. Paper threatens the future. Bumpy would not let the future leave the room before the terms did. Shoe 658. What happens until they answer? Lansky asked. Harlem remains closed. To both sides? Yes. And if Irishmen are already here? They leave. You said if they choose. Bumpy looked at him. That choice expires soon. Lansky held his gaze. There was the hidden part of the agreement. The 13 listeners. Maybe 13. Maybe more. If the Italians accepted, Bumpy would clean the district. Not for them, for Harlem. But the Italians would benefit. That benefit had value. Enough to justify permits, loans, contracts, workers. The families would understand. They might resent the price. Resentment does not kill agreements. Misunderstanding does. Bumpy had made the value clear. Now only fear remained to be priced. 7:12. Outside, the Irish car finally moved. Slowly, no tires screaming, no final threat. Its headlights crossed the restaurant windows and disappeared. The street became ordinary again. Marcus checked the front. Gone. Lansky stood. So am I. Bumpy remained seated. What do I tell them? Lansky asked. The truth. That you refuse the Irish? No. That you will remain neutral? No. Lansky waited. Bumpy looked at the folder. Tell them Harlem is deciding whether their war is allowed to touch it. That sounds like a threat. It is a boundary. Men hear boundaries as threats. Only when they plan to cross them. Lansky buttoned his coat. The negotiation had not ended. It had acquired a direction. That was different. 7:26. At the kitchen door, Lansky stopped. One more thing. Bumpy looked at him. Declan will not wait long. He already waited all night. He will call that patience. He will call anything patience if it ends before he loses control. Lansky nodded. You know his kind. I know force. And my kind. Bumpy looked toward the housing folder. I know agreements. Lansky gave a small smile. Agreements can kill too. Yes. Quieter. Yes. Cleaner. No. That answer stayed between them. Nothing about power was clean, only less visible. Lansky opened the door. Nathan escorted him into the alley. No cars waited nearby, not visibly. The Italians had learned Bumpy's rule for the street, for tonight. 7:40. Marcus returned to the table. Do you think they accept? They will calculate. And after, they will pretend the calculation was morality. Marcus looked at the folder. 50 buildings is a lot. So is a second front. What if they refuse? Then we learn how much they fear the Irish. And what if they agree? Bumpy closed the folder. Then we learn whether they keep promises when the promise strengthens someone else. That was the real test. The Italians knew how to bargain, but every organization loves agreements most when it receives the greater benefit. This agreement would be different. They would buy peace. Harlem would keep the structure. The war would end eventually. Buildings would remain. That imbalance was the beauty of the demand, and the reason acceptance could become dangerous. 7:54. The restaurant owner returned after sunrise. He entered carefully, saw the cups, the folders, the untouched food. He asked no questions. Good owners know rooms keep secrets better when nobody asks them to speak. Outside, Harlem began waking again. Delivery trucks, children, storefronts. The same sounds as yesterday. But the district had changed, not visibly. The Irish now knew Bumpy had met Lansky. The Italians now knew the price of neutrality. The police would soon know both. Information does not rest after sunrise. It changes clothes. By breakfast, the meeting would become rumor. By lunch, rumor would become alliance. By evening, alliance might become target. Bumpy stood. Marcus? Yes? Find the 13. All of them? All we know. 808. Marcus did not ask what to do after finding them. That question belonged later. First, names, rooms, jobs, habits, entrances, exits, who called whom, who received money, who believed himself invisible. A network is not people. It is connections. Cut one person and the network adjusts. Understand the connections, and the network collapses before it knows it has been touched. Bumpy handed Marcus no list. The names existed across memory and reports. Amon Price, 4 rented rooms, a man asking children about cars, a false reporter, a driver who never unloaded milk, others still unnamed, 13 ears, maybe more. The Irish had entered Harlem to listen. Soon, Harlem would begin listening back. 8:22. Nathan brought the Cadillac from the service station. New tire, clean body, same car. Yesterday's trap removed, today's trap unknown. Bumpy entered the rear seat. The housing folder remained inside the restaurant safe. Not at home, not in an office. Home attracts sentiment. Offices attract warrants. Restaurants attract hunger. Every hiding place needs an ordinary reason to be entered. Marcus sat beside him. Where first? The 4 rooms. Then? The man at the school. Then? Bumpy looked through the window. Then we wait. Marcus frowned. For Lansky? For everyone. The Irish would react to the meeting. The Italians would react to the price. The spies would react to both. Pressure makes hidden men communicate. Communication makes them visible. 8:36. The Cadillac moved north. A newspaper boy shouted headlines about labor violence downtown. No names, no families, no war. The city still pretended crime was a collection of separate accidents. That illusion kept businesses open. It kept politicians calm. It kept citizens believing danger had addresses. Danger rarely stays where newspapers place it. At 137th Street, the milk truck was gone. At 140th, the man in the gray hat had been replaced. New coat, newspaper folded differently, same shoes. Bumpy saw him. The man did not know. That was the first advantage of the morning. Known watchers are not threats. They are clocks. They tell you when someone expects movement, and someone expected movement now. 8:50. Marcus looked through the rear window. Gray shoes? Yes. Same man? No. Same crew? Yes. How do you know? They taught the replacement what to wear, not how to sit. The new watcher held his shoulders too straight. Military habit or fear. The Irish were rotating men. That meant yesterday's watchers had reported. Reports required a receiver. A receiver required a route. The route would lead toward the 13. Bumpy told Nathan to drive past the first rented building. No stop, no glance. At the next corner, the gray-shoed man entered a phone booth. Marcus watched. He's calling. Let him. To warn them, to connect them. The best way to find ears is to create news worth repeating. Lansky's visit had done that. 9:04. The call lasted 11 seconds. Short. Prepared. The watcher left the booth and walked east. Nathan kept driving north. Another man picked up the message at a newsstand. No words exchanged. Only a folded racing sheet placed beneath a stack. A boy collected it 2 minutes later, then entered a laundromat. The network moved like water, never straight, never still. Marcus marked locations in memory: newsstand, laundromat, rear alley, a blue delivery van. Each piece ordinary, together, deliberate. Bumpy watched the city explain the Irish structure. Force was their public language. But even force needed whispers. Every fist depends on an ear. Remove the ears, and the fist swings at shadows. The operation was beginning. The decision was not. 9:18. At the laundromat, the boy handed the racing sheet to a woman behind the counter. She did not open it. She placed it inside a clean shirt. The shirt went into a basket marked for delivery. Professional. Better than the watchers. The Irish network was not only Irish. Money hires accents cheaply. The woman could be local. So could the driver. That complicated the work. Bumpy did not want panic. Panic makes innocent people look guilty, and guilty people look ordinary. Do we take her? Marcus asked. No. The basket? No. The driver? No. Marcus looked at him. We keep watching. Yes. For how long? Until the message reaches someone who matters. Cutting a message too early only tells the sender where the wire broke. Let it travel. Let it reveal the wall. 9:32. The basket entered the blue van. The van drove west. Nathan remained 3 cars behind. No sudden turns, no close distance. The driver made 2 deliveries. Real shirts, real customers. Good cover always includes actual work. At the 3rd stop, the basket changed vehicles. A bakery truck, bread over messages. Ordinary life again. The truck crossed out of Harlem, toward the west side, toward Irish territory. Marcus looked at Bumpy. We keep following. No. Why? Because now we know the direction, not the receiver. We know enough for today. Bumpy looked back toward Harlem. The network carried information out. That was only half. Information also had to enter. Orders, money, names, find the return route, and the 13 would stop being separate men. They would become one system. 9:46. Nathan turned the Cadillac around. At that moment, a motorcycle approached from behind. Too fast, too close. Marcus saw the rider's right hand leave the handlebar. He reached beneath his coat. The motorcycle passed. No gun, only an envelope thrown through the open front window. It landed beside Nathan. The rider disappeared between two trucks. Marcus picked up the envelope. No name, no seal. Inside was one photograph. The restaurant, taken at 12:08. Lansky entering. Clear face. Clear time from a clock above a storefront. The Irish had proof. On the back, 6 words. Noon is closer than you think. Declan's clock returned. Threats become serious when they include evidence. 10 o'clock, Marcus handed Bumpy the photograph. They were closer than we thought. No. Bumpy studied the angle. 2nd floor, across the street. They wanted us to know how close. Difference? A hidden photographer collects information. Bumpy turned the photograph over. A visible photograph sells fear. The image also revealed the window used. Reflection in the glass showed a striped awning. 1 building across. 3rd room from the corner. The Irish had shown their own position. Impatience again. Declan wanted pressure before noon. Pressure had purchased a clue. Bumpy looked at Marcus. Send 2 men to the room. Take whoever is there? No. Then what? Remove the camera. Marcus understood. Not the photographer. Not yet. A missing camera says, we saw you. A missing man starts a war. 10:14. The Cadillac returned to Harlem. Morning traffic thickened. The photograph remained in Bumpy's hand. Lansky's face, the restaurant door, the timestamp, proof of contact, not proof of alliance. But men believe images faster than explanations. Declan could distribute copies. Italian crews could see them. Police could see them. Harlem could see them. A photograph is paper with less patience. It does not argue. It accuses. Bumpy tore it once, then again. Marcus watched. You don't want the evidence? I have the angle. The pieces went into the ashtray. Evidence is useful only if you control who believes it. The Irish controlled this one, so it had to become irrelevant. The next move could not be explanation. It had to be stronger than the picture. 10:28. At 10:28, the restaurant phone rang. Bumpy answered himself. Leon Belomo's voice. Mr. Lansky has delivered your proposal. Already? He did not sleep. Smart. The families are discussing it. How many object? Leon paused. Enough. How many understand? Another pause. Enough. That meant division. Good. A unanimous decision arrives from fear. A divided decision arrives from calculation. Calculation lasts longer. When will they answer? Bumpy asked. Before evening. Too late. Leon's voice changed. Why? Bumpy looked at the clock. Declan's noon deadline sat less than 2 hours away. Because the Irish are about to make their second mistake. He ended the call. No explanation. Information should be given only when it changes behavior. 10:42. Marcus entered through the kitchen. The room was empty. The camera? Gone. Bumpy looked at him. They expected us. Maybe. They left something. Marcus placed a brass transit token on the table. Same type as the one hidden inside the bread. This one had been scratched. A line through the center. Passage denied. Or patience ended. The Irish liked symbols. Symbols make force feel organized. But symbols also repeat. Repeated symbols become predictable. Bumpy turned the token once. They want noon to feel final. Marcus looked at the clock. Is it? No. What happens at noon? Bumpy closed his hand around the token. We find out whether Rourke threatens streets. He opened his hand. Or people. The distinction would decide the next move. 10:56. At 11, reports began arriving. A grocery truck stopped near 129th. A garage owner beaten near the west edge of Harlem. 2 Irish men seen entering one of the rented apartments. An Italian bookmaker warned to keep collectors south. Pressure on every side. Still no gunfire. That meant both organizations were waiting for Bumpy's answer. Waiting is not peace. It is loaded time. The beaten garage owner had refused to store a vehicle. The stopped grocery truck carried food. Declan was no longer offering routes. He was demonstrating interruption. Bumpy listened to every detail. No anger, no immediate retaliation. Retaliation before pattern is emotion. Retaliation after pattern is policy. The Irish had begun drawing the pattern themselves. 11:10. Bumpy stood beside the restaurant window. Children crossed toward school. A city bus stopped. A woman opened a flower shop. Ordinary life again. Always ordinary life beside danger. Marcus approached. We can hit the 4 rooms before noon. Yes. Take all of them. Yes. Then why wait? Bumpy watched the street. Because 4 rooms are not 13 ears. You said find the 13. I said find them. Marcus understood the difference. Finding is not removing. Not yet. A network under pressure sends instructions. At noon, Declan would send something. Maybe a threat. Maybe an attack. Maybe a demand through every listener at once. That communication would illuminate the structure. The closer the deadline came, the more valuable silence became. 11:24. At 11:24, the first phone rang. A bar owner reported an Irish man asking whether Bumpy had accepted the alliance. At 11:27, a porter saw 2 unknown men enter a basement. At 11:31, a child delivered a sealed note to a tailor. At 11:34, a cab left the laundromat route. At 11:38, the false reporter returned near the school. Separate movements. Same clock. Marcus placed markers on a street map. 13 had become 9, then 11, then 12. 1 remained hidden. The most important one usually does. Networks protect the center better than the edges. Bumpy studied the map. The lines did not point west. They pointed inward, toward someone inside Harlem coordinating the others. An ear was not only listening, one ear was speaking. 11:38, Samuel Pike arrived carrying revised cost estimates. He stopped when he saw the map. Names, addresses, times. The legal world and the street world sharing one table. Paper does not care who writes on it, only who can enforce what it says. Samuel placed his folder beside the map. 50 buildings, minimum financing structure. Bumpy opened it. The number was higher than before. Marcus looked over his shoulder. That much? Land costs changed, Samuel said. They always change when someone needs land. Bumpy did not react. The price had grown. Good. A demand that remains comfortable is not leverage. He turned to Samuel. Prepare a public version. Samuel hesitated. For who? Everyone. The photograph could imply alliance. A public housing plan would redefine the meeting, not criminal cooperation. A demand. 11:52. What do we release? Samuel asked. Nothing yet. Then why prepare it? Because paper should be ready before rumor. Bumpy looked at the clock. 8 minutes. Declan's deadline approached. The room went quiet. No one announced the time. Everyone felt it. Outside, a church bell began to ring. One strike, then another. Noon arrives publicly. That is why men use it for threats. Midnight belongs to secrecy. Noon belongs to witnesses. The phone remained silent. 11:55, 11:57. Marcus stood near the door. Nathan waited in the alley. Samuel held his folder. Bumpy sat at the table. Stillness, alignment. The clock reached 12, and nothing happened. That was worse. 12:06. At 6 minutes past noon, a boy entered the restaurant. 10 years old. School uniform. Cap too large. He carried a small wooden box. Marcus moved toward him. The boy froze. Bumpy raised one hand. Let him through. The boy placed the box on the table. A man gave me $1. What man? He had red hair. Where? Outside school. Did he say anything? The boy nodded. He said it was a gift. Bumpy looked at the box. No markings, no lock, heavy for its size. Marcus moved the boy toward the kitchen. Nathan checked the street. Samuel stared at the box. The deadline had not brought gunfire. It had brought ceremony. Ceremony is how organized men make violence memorable. 12:20, Marcus returned. Could be wired. Yes. Should clear the building. No. Samuel looked at Bumpy. You don't know what is inside. I know what they want me to imagine. Fear works best before a box opens. Afterward, it becomes fact. Facts can be managed. Bumpy examined the hinges. Old brass, no visible wire, no smell of chemicals, no ticking. Ticking belongs to movies and amateurs. Real devices are quiet. So are empty threats. Marcus brought tools. He lifted the lid from the side. Nothing exploded. Inside lay 13 small silver bells, each wrapped in black cloth. 13 ears. 13 warnings. The Irish knew Bumpy was hunting the network, or wanted him to believe they knew. Beneath the bells was a note. Touch one. Lose all. 12:34. Marcus read the note twice. They know. They suspect. Same thing? No. Bumpy lifted one bell. It rang softly. A clean sound. Small. Precise. The room listened. Threats with symbols aim at memory. Declan wanted Bumpy to remember 13 before acting against one. Collective punishment. One ear disappears. A wider attack follows. Force again. Simple. Immediate. But the box had revealed fear. The Irish were protecting their listeners. That meant the listeners mattered more than expected. Maybe because the war depended on them. Maybe because one carried information from the Italians. Maybe because one sat closer to Bumpy than anyone realized. The 13th ear was not merely hidden. It was valuable. That changed the hunt. 12:48. The phone rang. Lay on again. The families have a preliminary answer. Preliminary answers are denials wearing coats. They are willing to discuss financing. How many buildings? 20? No. Mr. Johnson, 50. They say 20 now, 20 later. 50. Permits could delay, 50. Leon exhaled. The Italians were bargaining with the number. That meant they had accepted the concept. The first wall had moved. Now they wanted the price smaller. Bumpy looked at the 13 bells. The Irish had just made the number larger in meaning. Tell Lansky the offer changes at sunset. Leon went silent. Changes how? 50 becomes 60. The line remained quiet for 2 seconds, then disconnected. Pressure had begun moving both ways. 13:02. Marcus looked at him. 60? At sunset. You need 50. I need them to understand time is not theirs. The clock again. Alignment. The Italians had delayed because delay usually lowers demands. Bumpy reversed the method. Delay would raise the price. Now every hour had cost. Lansky would understand. The families would resent it. Good. Resentment proves the demand cannot be ignored. Samuel looked at the bells. And the Irish? They get no clock. What do they get? Bumpy placed the bell back in the box. Their message returned. How? Bumpy closed the lid. He had not decided yet. The return mattered. Too weak, and Declan would push harder. Too violent, and the war would enter Harlem before neutrality existed. The answer needed to wound confidence without spilling blood. For now. 1316. Nathan entered with another report. One of the rented rooms had emptied, not all four. 1. The tenant left through the rear carrying no luggage. Followed, Marcus asked. Yes. Where? Bus terminal. Leaving the city? No ticket. Then, he entered a restroom. And never came out. A second exit, a clothing change, professional. The network was responding to pressure. The box had been delivered while one ear relocated. Distraction and movement. Declan was better than his men, or someone inside the network was. Bumpy looked at the map again. One room empty, 12 active, 13 bells. The hidden center may have been the man who moved, or the person who ordered him to move. Not enough. Still not enough. 1330. Bumpy gave Marcus new instructions. No removals, Marcus frowned. Not even the 4 rooms? No. They threatened all of them. That is why we wait. For another message? For the mistake after the message. Threats create confidence in the sender. Confidence creates repetition. The Irish believed the box had slowed Bumpy, so they would communicate again, sooner, less carefully. Bumpy turned to Samuel. Take the housing papers. Where? Your office. And the public version? Ready by 4. Samuel gathered the folders. He avoided touching the box. Reasonable. Symbols work even on men who know they are symbols. Fear does not require belief, only imagination. 1344. After Samuel left, Bumpy opened the wooden box again. 13 bells. Identical at first glance. Not identical. One had a deeper scratch near the base. One had darker cloth. One had been polished recently. Marcus watched him compare them. You think they mean specific people? Yes. How? Men like Declan do not send 13 of anything by accident. Bumpy arranged the bells in a row. Different wear, different knots, different lengths of cloth, a code, maybe rank, maybe location, maybe order of contact. The Irish had sent a threat and accidentally included a map. Force likes symbols because symbols look permanent, but symbols contain information. Everything made by hand remembers the hand. Bumpy lifted the darkest cloth. It smelled faintly of machine oil. Garage. One ear connected to vehicles. 1358. Another cloth smelled of tobacco. One of flour. One of cheap soap. Bakery. Laundromat. Bar. The network's locations. The bells had been wrapped where the listeners worked, or by people carrying their messages. Marcus understood. They gave us the 13. Not names. Enough to narrow. Bumpy arranged the bells beside the map. Oil near the garage. Flour near the bakery route. Soap near the laundromat. Tobacco near the bar. One cloth smelled of nothing. Clean. New. The hidden center. No workplace. No public routine. Protected. The 13th ear did not live inside ordinary labor. It existed closer to organization. Maybe an apartment. Maybe an office. Maybe a person trusted by Bumpy's own people. The clean cloth was the loudest bell. 1412. The phone rang a third time. Not Leon. Meyer Lansky. Direct. That meant the negotiation had become serious. 60 is theater, Lansky said. 20 was insult. 35. 60. 40. 60. You are not bargaining. I bargained before you called. With who? With the clock. Lansky was silent. He understood the method and disliked it. Good. 50, he said finally. Before sunset? Agreement in principle. Buildings do not stand in principle. Neither does neutrality. Bumpy looked at the clean bell. Then both remain unfinished. He ended the call. No deal. Not yet. But 50 had returned to the table. The Italians were closer. The Irish were closer too, from opposite directions. 1426. Marcus asked the obvious question. What happens if Lansky calls back with 50? We listen. That sounds like yes. It sounds like listening. And the Irish? We speak before they do. Bumpy looked at the clock. Declan expected fear after noon. Instead, he would receive uncertainty. But uncertainty alone was not enough. The Irish had to understand Harlem was not drifting toward Italy. It was closing itself. That distinction mattered. Without it, Declan would attack to prevent alliance. With it, he might wait. Men at war accept limits only when the alternative costs more. Bumpy needed the Italians close enough to make that cost real, but not close enough to own the outcome. Balance is not standing between two forces. It is making both fear your movement. 1440. A man from the garage arrived through the kitchen. He carried grease beneath his nails. One of the trusted contacts. He had found the source of the oil-scented cloth. A mechanic named Patrick Mullen. Worked nights. Rented a room near 143rd. No family. Paid cash. Recently serviced 2 cars with false plates. One of the 13. Take him? Marcus asked. Bumpy looked at the box. No. The mechanic would lead to others, or receive an order. The bells were not only a threat, they were a schedule. The Irish had warned Bumpy not to touch one. That meant each listener had probably been told to report on contact. Touch one. The network reacts, so Bumpy would touch none. He would touch the spaces between them. Money, messages, transport, rooms. A network can lose air without losing a single body. 1454. The plan began quietly. A landlord delayed access to one rented room. A telephone line developed a fault. A delivery route changed. A taxi driver refused one passenger. A bar closed early for repairs. No arrests, no beatings, no disappearances. Not yet. Each ear remained alive. Each connection became less reliable. The Irish network began to feel pressure without seeing the hand. That was the point. Visible force creates resistance. Invisible control creates doubt. By 3 o'clock, 2 listeners had attempted alternate calls. By 3:10, 3 had changed routes. By 3:20, 1 visited Patrick Mullen's garage. The map tightened. Connections appeared. Still no 13th name. But the center was being forced to breathe faster. Fast breathing makes noise. 1508. Samuel returned with the public housing document. No criminal language, no Italian names, no Irish war. Only a proposal. 50 buildings, low-income families, construction schedules, community oversight, the legal version of leverage. Paper is strongest when it can survive daylight. Bumpy read the first page. Samuel had titled it, Harlem Residential Stability Plan. Stability, the same word Lansky used, now repurposed. Words do not belong to power. They belong to whoever defines the cost. Bumpy approved it. Copies? 20? Make 50. Samuel almost asked why, then saw the bells. 13 threats, 50 buildings, 2 numbers fighting over the same city. He nodded and left. 15:22. At 3:22, the clean bell found its first connection. Patrick Mullen left the garage, walked 6 blocks, entered a pharmacy, used no phone, bought nothing, exited through the rear. A woman in a nurse's coat met him in the alley. She carried a plain envelope. No smell, no work cloth, clean. Marcus's men followed her. She crossed east, entered a private medical office, stayed 4 minutes, left without the envelope. The office belonged to a doctor respected in Harlem. Too respected. That made the possibility dangerous. A hidden ear inside trusted space could hear more than streets. Patients, families, private conversations. Bumpy did not react. Accusation without proof destroys more than guilt. The 13th ear was getting closer. So was the risk of cutting the wrong throat. 15:36. The doctor was not Irish, not connected publicly. He treated children, older people, men who could not pay. The neighborhood trusted him. That made his office useful. Maybe he knew nothing. Maybe a clerk did. Maybe a patient. Maybe the envelope had entered only because the rear door stayed unlocked. Networks borrow innocent places. That is how they survive. Marcus wanted to search the office. Bumpy refused. Too visible. We could do it quietly. Quiet is not the same as invisible. The doctor's reputation was part of Harlem's structure. Damage it without certainty, and Bumpy would be doing the war's work himself. Patience again. Expensive. Necessary. The nurse's coat had been a costume. The woman had changed shoes after leaving. Professional. The center remained hidden. 15:50, Lansky called again. 50. Bumpy said nothing. Financing begins within 30 days. Silence. First construction within 60. Silence. Completion schedule negotiated by project. Bumpy looked at the clock. Community oversight. Lansky exhaled. That will be difficult. So is war. Contractors must be approved. By Harlem. Jointly. By Harlem. You are asking us to pay without control. I am asking you to buy neutrality. Same answer every time. Same price. Lansky went quiet. Then, and the Irish network? Bumpy looked at the 13 bells. It will be gone. When? When the buildings become real. No. The first hard refusal from Lansky. Now the real bargaining had begun. 16:04. You want the network removed first, Bumpy said. Yes. You want payment later. Construction takes time. So does trust. We need proof. You came because proof already exists. What proof? That I can close Harlem. Lansky's voice cooled. Can you? Bumpy lifted one bell. It rang once. Lansky heard it through the phone. What was that? A question. He set the bell down. Your answer decides whether it becomes a warning. Lansky understood something had happened. Not what. Uncertainty moved to his side now. The negotiation was balanced again. Tonight, Lansky said. Tonight what? Another meeting. With who? Men who can sign. Bumpy looked at Samuel's public proposal. Then bring pens. 16:18. The call ended. Marcus looked at the clock. Tonight? Yes. Here. No. Why? This room is known now. The photograph had made it visible. The Irish watchers had mapped both doors. The restaurant remained useful for rumor, not negotiation. A new room was needed. Neutral. Bright. Hard to surround. Bumpy chose a church basement. Not because it was sacred, because it had 4 exits, public windows, and people nearby until late. Violence dislikes witnesses it cannot buy. Marcus began arranging security. Nathan changed vehicles. Samuel prepared copies. Every action looked administrative. That was intentional. A serious agreement should move like paperwork, not like war. War attracts attention. Paper survives it. 1632. Before leaving, Bumpy returned to the wooden box. He selected the clean bell, wrapped it again, placed it inside his coat. Marcus noticed. For Rourke? For whoever owns it. You know? Not yet. Then why carry it? Because objects make men look where they should not. The other 12 bells remained in the box. A message incomplete. The Irish had sent 13. Bumpy would return 1, not to threaten, to divide. If Declan received 1 bell, he would wonder which listener had been exposed. If the hidden center received it, the person would panic. Either way, communication would accelerate. The 13th ear would reveal itself, trying to learn what Bumpy knew. Fear counts. That is its weakness. 1646. A messenger was chosen carefully. Not a child. Not one of Bumpy's men. A retired postal worker named Ellis Ward, 62, known in the neighborhood, ignored by gangsters. Old men become invisible because young men confuse speed with relevance. Ellis received no explanation, only an address and the wrapped bell, an Irish social club west of 8th Avenue. For Mr. Rourke, Bumpy said. Anything else? Yes. What? Tell him Harlem returns what it does not accept. Ellis placed the package inside his coat. No fear visible. Maybe no fear. Maybe practiced dignity. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is refusing to let fear choose posture. Ellis left on foot. No car, no escort. Ordinary delivery. Extraordinary weight. 1700. At 5, Leon Bellomo arrived with a message. Not a phone call. Paper. A preliminary agreement signed by 2 representatives. Not all. Enough to show movement. 50 buildings. 30-day financing. 60-day construction start. Community oversight left blank. That blank mattered more than the signatures. Control remained unresolved. Bumpy read every line. Leon waited. Mr. Lansky says tonight can settle the rest. Can it? He believes so. Belief is cheaper than ink. Leon looked toward the box of 12 bells. What happened? Irish decoration. Leon understood not to ask again. Bumpy folded the agreement. Not accepted, not rejected. The first paper had entered the room. Paper makes wars nervous. It creates obligations. Bullets cannot erase cleanly. 1714. A report came from Ellis Ward. Delivery complete. Declan Rourke had opened the package in front of 6 men. The bell rang once when it hit the table. No one spoke. Then Declan asked one question. Which one? Exactly. The division had begun. The Irish did not know which listener Bumpy had identified, so they would check all 13. Checking creates messages. Messages create paths. Within 15 minutes, Patrick Mullen left his garage again. The false reporter abandoned the school. The laundromat woman closed early. 3 rented rooms lit up at once, and the medical office received 2 calls from public booths. The hidden center was reacting, not revealed, but moving. The bell had done more than a weapon could. No blood. Maximum noise. 1728. Marcus placed new markers on the map. Lines converged around the medical office, but not inside it. Behind it, a narrow building with rooms above a pharmacy warehouse. The rear entrances shared an alley. The nurse-costumed woman had not entered the doctor's office. She had crossed through it. Trusted space used as a corridor. The doctor might know nothing. Good. One innocent structure preserved. Above the warehouse lived a man named Colin Shea. Accountant, no known gang ties. Paid rent 6 months in advance. Rarely received visitors. No criminal record. Clean. Too clean. The 13th bell had no smell because its owner had no public labor. He worked with numbers. Numbers move quietly. So do orders. The hidden ear had a name, not yet proof, but enough for surveillance. 1742. Take him tonight, Marcus asked. No. You said find all 13. We found the center, so we take the center. Not before the agreement. Marcus looked at Bumpy. The connection was clear now. Removing the Irish network before Italian signatures would give away leverage. Waiting too long risked an attack. Timing again, not numbers. Alignment. The buildings. The network. The Italian fear. The Irish impatience. All had to meet in the same hour. Too early, Harlem would work for free. Too late, Harlem would bleed. Bumpy folded the preliminary agreement and placed it inside his coat. Tonight they sign. And if they don't? Bumpy looked at Colin Shea's name on the map. Then the 13th ear keeps listening. The second chapter ended with everyone still waiting. The third would decide who paid for the silence. 2008. The church basement had no decorations, only folding chairs, a long wooden table, 4 exits, 6 windows high enough to prevent easy entry and low enough to show movement outside. Bumpy arrived first. That mattered. The man who arrives first chooses the silence. Marcus checked every door. Nathan remained near the rear stairwell. Samuel Pike placed the contracts in 3 equal stacks. No whiskey, no celebration. Celebration belongs after survival. At 8:12, Meyer Lansky entered with 2 men. One represented construction money. The other represented unions. Neither introduced himself. Names were already written on the paper. Tonight, ink mattered more than reputation. 2022, Lansky removed his coat. You chose a church. I chose 4 exits. Lansky looked around. Practical faith. The only kind that survives New York. The men sat. Samuel opened the agreement. 50 residential buildings. Financing guaranteed within 30 days. Construction beginning within 60. Harlem contractors given priority. Community representatives controlling tenant selection. No Italian crews entering Harlem for retaliation. No Irish weapons, messengers, or safe rooms allowed inside the district. Lansky read the final page twice. The Italians would finance the structures. Harlem would control them. That sentence had cost the longest argument. Men accept expense faster than independence. 2036. The union representative tapped one clause. Community oversight is too broad. It is exact, Bumpy said. You choose the tenants. Families choose homes. You choose the contractors. Harlem chooses who works in Harlem. The man looked toward Lansky. Lansky said nothing. Silence is also a vote. The financier leaned forward. What guarantees the Irish network is removed? Bumpy looked at the 3 men. The same thing guaranteeing your crews stay out. What? My word. The financier almost smiled. Bumpy did not. A signature is only paper until someone dangerous protects it. Then it becomes architecture. Lansky picked up the pen. 50. 50, Bumpy said. The first signature entered the page. Soft sound. Permanent consequence. 2050. The second man signed. Then the third. Samuel turned the agreement toward Bumpy. Bumpy did not sign immediately. He looked at Lansky. No hidden ownership. No inflated construction costs. Lansky paused. Reasonable costs. No. Bumpy's finger rested on the signature line. Real costs. Lansky studied him, then nodded. Real costs. Bumpy signed. The pen moved once. No gunfire, no shouting, no applause. Yet the balance of the city shifted. Paper is colder than steel. It does not need anger. It only needs people afraid of what happens if it is broken. Samuel closed the folder. The agreement existed now. That meant the network had become due. 21:04. Marcus received the signal. One phone call. 3 words. Close every door. Across Harlem, movement began. A garage locked early. A laundromat lost power. A bar closed for repairs. A landlord changed 2 locks. A telephone line went silent. No sirens. No cars racing. No weapons displayed. The 13 listeners discovered their routes had disappeared. One tried the pharmacy. The rear passage was closed. Another reached the bus terminal. His ticket had been canceled. A third went to Patrick Mullen's garage and found the tools removed. Networks depend on connections. Bumpy did not attack the men first. He attacked the spaces between them. By 10 o'clock, every ear was isolated. Isolation makes loyalty expensive. 22:06. Patrick Mullen was taken first. No beating, no public scene. 2 men entered the garage. 3 left. The false reporter disappeared from outside the school. The laundromat woman closed the front door and never reopened it. The tenant from the rented room tried to reach Colin Shea. The phone was dead. He ran instead. Running confirms more than confession. One by one, the 13 were removed from the map. No shots were reported. No bodies were left on sidewalks. No police cars arrived. Harlem continued breathing. Music played. Lights stayed on. Children slept. The cleanest operations are not clean. They are quiet enough for innocent people to remain innocent. By midnight, 12 ears had stopped listening. 1 remained. 0:18. Colin Shea sat alone above the warehouse. Account books open, curtains closed, suitcase packed. He knew, not everything, enough. Marcus entered through the rear stairwell. Bumpy followed. Colin did not reach for a weapon. Accountants understand hopeless numbers. "You found all of us," he said. Bumpy looked at the suitcase. "No." Colin's face changed. "Then why are you here?" "To find out who you report to after Rourke." Colin stayed silent. The hidden ear was not the center, only the cleanest connection. There was another name, a higher room, a deeper channel. The Irish network had been built in layers. Good systems survive 1 cut. Great systems survive 2. Bumpy intended to leave none. 0032. Colin tried money, then information, then protection. The order revealed what he valued most. Bumpy listened. No anger, no hurry. Finally, Colin gave the name of a banker's clerk downtown. The clerk passed Irish money into Harlem through false housing loans. The irony sat between them. The Irish had used broken homes to finance surveillance. Now Italian money would build the homes that destroyed it. Cities enjoy cruel symmetry. Marcus closed Colin's account book. What happens to him? Bumpy looked at the window. Streetlights below, quiet sidewalks. Harlem has no room for him. Colin was taken downstairs. After that night, no one in Harlem saw him again. The other 12 disappeared too. 13 ears, 13 empty rooms. No bodies found, no explanations offered. 6:40. By morning, the Irish network was gone. Not weakened, gone. Phones rang unanswered. Apartments stood empty. A garage opened without its mechanic. The laundromat had new management by noon. Police found no evidence of a coordinated operation. Evidence is often what remains after someone loses control. Bumpy had left only absence. Declan Rourke received 13 messages that morning. Each one said the same thing differently. No contact, no report, no response. At 10, he broke a telephone against a wall. At 11, he called for cars. At noon, the Irish returned to Harlem, not with 3 sedans, with 6. Force had doubled, because confidence had halved. 12:14. The cars stopped outside the unfinished housing foundation. Bumpy had chosen the place. Steel rods, concrete trenches. The faded sign still promised homes. Declan stepped from the lead car. Seamus followed. 10 Irishmen spread behind them. Marcus stood beside Bumpy. Nathan waited near the Cadillac. No crowd. No visible army. Only workers on nearby rooftops. Men at windows. Store owners in doorways. Harlem watching. Declan saw them. Not soldiers. Witnesses. A neighborhood becomes dangerous when everyone understands the same boundary. Declan looked at the empty foundation. You chose a graveyard. Bumpy looked at the steel rods. No. A beginning. Declan hated the answer before he understood it. 12:28. You met the Italians, Declan said. Yes. You made an agreement. Yes. The honesty unsettled him. Declan had prepared for denial. Denial can be attacked. Truth must be interpreted first. You chose them. No. You took their money. They are financing 50 buildings. Declan stared. For what? For staying out. The Irishman behind him shifted. Seamus looked at the foundation again. The war had been converted into concrete. Declan's expression hardened. You sold Harlem. Bumpy stepped closer. No. I charged both sides for trying to use it. What did you charge us? 13 ears. The words landed without volume. Declan understood, not immediately. Understanding always comes late. That is why it is expensive. 12:42. Declan's hand moved toward his coat. Marcus's did not. That difference mattered. One man reacted, the other waited. Bumpy watched Declan's face. You touched my people. They entered my district. You killed them. I removed them. Where are they? Bumpy looked around the foundation. No answer. Some questions lose value when the asker already knows enough. Declan stepped closer. Our war is not finished. It is not my war. You made it yours. No. Bumpy's voice remained calm. You tried to move it through Harlem. He pointed toward the ground. This is where it stopped. Declan looked at the workers, the windows, the rooftops. The district had not gathered loudly. It had simply remained present. Presence can be more threatening than numbers. 12:56. Declan lowered his voice. You think Italians will honor paper? No. That answer surprised everyone. Then why sign? Because now breaking it costs them more. And us? You have no paper. Declan smiled without humor. Then we owe you nothing. Bumpy looked directly at him. You owe Harlem distance. And if we refuse, then you open a second front. Declan's face tightened. The Italians were already hitting Irish docks. 3 crews had been lost in 2 weeks. Money was slowing. Weapons were harder to move. Men were becoming suspicious of one another. Now 13 listeners were gone. Harlem had not fired a shot publicly, yet the Irish position had weakened overnight. A second front was no longer a threat. It was arithmetic. 13:10. You cannot fight both sides, Declan said. I am not fighting both. Then what are you doing? Closing a door. Declan looked at the foundation. And if we break it? Bumpy stepped within 3 feet. Then Harlem becomes the last place your men enter. No speech, no raised voice, 1 sentence, 1 bullet without powder. The Irishman watched Declan. That was the real pressure. A boss can ignore an enemy. He cannot ignore the fear behind his own men's eyes. They knew the war with the Italians was already costing too much. They knew the 13 ears were gone. They knew Harlem had discovered them without warning. Force works best when everyone believes it is the only force in the room. That belief had ended. 1324. Seamus leaned toward Declan, whispered something. Bumpy could not hear it. He did not need to. The answer was written in Declan's posture. Shoulders lower, chin still high, pride negotiating with survival. Irish gangs usually answered threats immediately. That was their language. But language changes when the speaker is exhausted. Declan looked at Bumpy for a long time. This neutrality of yours. He glanced toward the workers. How long does it last? As long as everyone respects it. And if the Italians break it first, they receive the same answer. Declan searched for a lie, found none. Neutrality was not friendship with Italy. It was a rule. Rules become powerful when punishment does not care who breaks them. 1338. Declan buttoned his coat. A small movement. The conversation was ending, not peacefully, practically. "You think you won," he said. Bumpy looked at the unfinished foundation. "No." "Then what do you call this?" "Alignment." Declan frowned. Bumpy continued. "Your war stays outside. The Italians pay for what Harlem needs, and anyone who listens without permission stops listening." Declan looked toward the cars. 6 vehicles, 10 armed men, all that force, no usable target. An attack would bring Harlem into the war. Withdrawal would preserve strength for the Italians. Pride demanded one answer. Survival demanded another. Survival usually wins when funerals become too frequent. Declan turned away. The Irish followed. 1352. The cars left one by one. No tires screaming, no weapons raised, no final promise. Only engines moving south. Marcus watched until the last car disappeared. "You think they stay out?" "For now." "And later?" Bumpy looked at the foundation. "Later gets its own price." Nathan approached from the Cadillac. Lansky called. What did he want? To confirm construction begins in 60 days. Bumpy looked toward the faded sign. New homes coming soon. "Tell him 59. Nathan almost smiled, then returned to the car. Power should never stop counting after the agreement. That is when most men become careless. Bumpy did not. 1406. Construction began 59 days later, not 60. Lansky understood the message. The first foundation was poured before autumn, then another, then another. Italian money moved through legal banks. Union workers raised walls. Harlem contractors hired Harlem men. Families placed their names on waiting lists. No Italian flags, no Irish marks, no plaques honoring criminals, only brick, windows, doors, roofs. The war continued elsewhere. Warehouses burned, men disappeared, deals broke. But Harlem did not become the battlefield both sides had wanted. The district remained closed, not because anyone loved peace, because Bumpy had made violation too expensive. That is the only kind of peace power respects. 20 months later, children played beside the first completed building. Their parents carried furniture upstairs. A woman opened a window on the 3rd floor. Fresh paint, new glass, a room that had not existed before the war. Marcus stood beside Bumpy across the street. 50 buildings, he said. Bumpy watched the families enter. 50 foundations. For what? The next negotiation. Marcus looked at him. Bumpy adjusted the brim of his hat. Cities do not remember every threat. They do not remember every gun. They remember what remains after frightened men leave. The Irish had brought roadblocks. The Italians had brought contracts. Bumpy had turned both into homes. Time is not numbers. It is alignment. And for once, the city had been forced to align with Harlem.